The quorum, right?
Sure is. I think we only need 5, 6.
Need-
Need
More
6.
than half, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although, we only sort of have a quorum.
In person,
Yeah.
If you count her. Good evening. Welcome to the June 8th Northampton School Committee meeting. I'm Gwen Agna, Vice Chair of the School Committee, and I will be presiding this evening in absence of the chair. This meeting is being held both remotely on Zoom pursuant to the modification of the state's open meeting law for the pandemic and in person here in the community room at JFK Middle School. This meeting and all participating will be audio and video recorded. I will begin by asking the clerk to please call the roll of the school committee. And the following members are participating remotely over Zoom. That is Member Gazy and Member Stein so far.
I know the mayor is not here this evening, so Member Robbins.
Here?
Member Gazy.
Present.
Oops. Member Seraphy Cox, is she with us yet?
Don't see her.
Member Stein.
Present.
Member Levy.
Present.
Member Miller.
Present.
Member Goldman is not with us tonight. Member Agna.
Present.
And Member Davis.
Present.
Thank you.
You have a quorum.
So instead of starting with the public comment tonight, we are going to start with our 2023 retirements ceremony. And it's a little bit different this year from what I recall in the past. It is more that we are going to recognize by name those who are in person and also those who are not here to thank them. So on behalf of the mayor first, who is very sorry that she cannot be here, she sends her gratitude and her appreciation for all the years that everyone has been here. So it is my pleasure to read the names of the retirees for the 2023 year. I will begin with Donna Lawrence, who was 31 years business office assistant. Sauro Michaud, who is 30 years as a music teacher at Bridge Street and at Leeds. Maria del Carmen Garcia, who is 25 years of kindergarten teacher at Jackson Street School. She sends her regrets and thanks. With pleasure, I say Chet Pazek, who is 22 years as the bus driver. Yay, Chet! Did Chet come back? Chet was here before. Hopefully he will be back and I'll say his name again. Lisa Saffron, 21 years, Director of Health, Safety, and Equity. Jean Flegenheimer, 20 years as a special needs teacher, I believe at Bridge Street?
Bridge Street, yeah.
Mostly, Bridge Street.
Yeah, right.
Jean Flegenheimer. Claire Williams, 17 years as the band teacher at JFK Middle School. Michelle Emanation, 15 years as ESL teacher at JFK. Deb Rainiak, 12 years as the registered nurse floater. And She also sends her regrets. She had a death in the family, and she cannot be here tonight, but she said thank you. Paul Demond, 11 years as the cafeteria assistant. Jeffrey Gosselin, 11 years as an ESP, or as a paraeducator, as we now say. Yay. Rebecca Alessi, 8 years as tiered support teacher at Jackson Street School. Roxanne Mariani Prawl, 6 years as the technology integration teacher at Leeds and Bridge. Is that right? Ryan Road. Roxanne. Dr. Andrew Kerner, 4 years as school psychologist at Bridge Street, I believe, right? And Roxanne Neiman, 5th grade teacher at Leeds School. What did you say? 18 years. 18 years, all right, good. So your tireless efforts and unwavering dedication have left a permanent impact on the lives of so many students, caregivers, faculty, and staff of the Northampton Public Schools. As you retire, we wish you a happy and fulfilling future filled with new adventures and opportunities, and we send all our gratitude to all of you. Thank you. And we do have a little token of appreciation, which I will ask, perhaps, would you like to give to them? Okay. And thank you so much, and we appreciate that you're coming. And if Chet comes back in, he was hoping that it was going to be at 6:15, and we apologize for the confusion around the time that was on. The invitation was 6:15, but the agenda has 6:40, which is not quite. So we're going to start with the student representative report. I don't know if the student representative got the word that she
Yes,
was
she
going to
did.
be moved up. Do we know?
She did get the word.
She did get the word.
Is she
Okay.
here?
I was looking on the computer, let's see.
I don't see
I
her.
don't see her either. Maybe Mr. Worley can fill us in on where she might be?
Do we know where she is?
Evening. I talked to Evelyn yesterday, and I was expecting her to come, and she knew the time. So I'm not sure what came up.
There's Emily.
Okay, well, we're welcoming Emily Seraphy Cox. Member Seraphy Cox has arrived. I think what we'll do then is go to the public comment period and back to student representative when she arrives. So we are taking public comment in person and over Zoom. There is a sign-up sheet for public comment on the easel there, on the, whatever you call it. I will go through the names that have signed up and ask if there is anyone else who wishes to speak after. For those on Zoom, if you wish to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature in the bottom menu bar under reactions. If you are calling in by phone, you can raise your hand by hitting *9. Before you begin, please state your name and your city or town for the public record. I will set a 3-minute timer to ensure everyone has an equal opportunity to speak. We have a very long meeting ahead, so brevity is always appreciated, and we needn't feel obligated to use all 3 minutes. For those on Zoom, I will ask that all but the school committee turn off your video until you're called upon. Only the person recognized has the floor. So do we have a list? Thank you.
Yes, you do.
I think I'm just going to wait until these are given out.
Party favors.
Do we sign on to NPS? These guys help me with it, or do we?
It'll just take a while, but NPS 2 will come.
But I never got set up with that.
Thank you, Margaret.
I don't have a charger for this computer.
Okay. I'm going to recognize
A
the
member says they can't hear the public comment, so it's just that they're not speaking now.
Yeah, they're not.
Yes, it's, thank you, Margaret.
All right, our first name is Cindy Mahoney.
All right. Good evening. My name is Cindy Mahoney, and I live at 77 Emerson Way in Florence. I'm here tonight to thank you for supporting the resolution before the school committee in support of the Thrive Act and the Thrive Act itself. My focus is on the MCAS graduation requirement. Our older two graduated from Northampton in 2015 and 17. Our youngest is in the goals program at Northampton High. Because she works diligently and at her own pace, it takes her the full school day to complete each portion of the MCAS exam. So this spring, she will have missed 6 full days of instruction, more than a week of school for MCAS, ELA, math, and biology testing. Add to that the extreme anxiety before testing sessions, and you can imagine the toll this has taken. I volunteer as an education decision maker for students and have taught ESOL to adult immigrants and refugees, and currently work for the Federation for Children with Special Needs. So I've seen how MCAS impacts families across the state. DESE eliminated the MCAS requirement for the graduating classes of 20 to 22, which made sense given the pandemic. However, what about the subsequent graduating classes whose education was also disrupted? According to the National Center for Fair and Open Testing, Massachusetts remains one of 8 states across the country which continue to mandate a graduation test for a high school diploma. I would think Massachusetts would be uncomfortable being in the same educational category as Florida and Texas. There are other ways to measure school quality and performance and ensure accountability. I encourage you to learn more from the Education Commonwealth Project as to how that can be accomplished. I've asked DESE staff repeatedly, but have yet to get a clear answer as to how many high school students dropped out due to failing the MCAS. Do we know how many Northampton students have left high school without a diploma because of the MCAS barrier? Northampton School's mission is to build communities of engaged students, enable students to reach their potential, nurture kindness, empathy, and tolerance, which the MCAS doesn't measure. Our daughter has demonstrated these competencies and is actively engaged in civics, having watched every moment of the January 6th hearings. She tracks primaries like a Boston sports fan and can tell you about the pets of U.S. and foreign leaders. She cares about her classmates and is devoted to our dogs, so she has clearly shown empathy, kindness, and in the case of the badly behaved dog, tolerance. We are fortunate to have strong advocates and local legislators and are grateful for their efforts. However, we also need to speak truth to power with regard to the Secretary of Education and DESE Board. CPAC families recently gathered here in this room to celebrate the school staff who demonstrate caring and creativity in their work with special needs students on a daily basis, which is what truly matters in the classroom. In closing, my daughter said about the MCAS graduation requirement, "It feels like it is discrimination, and you're not supposed to discriminate against students who have different academic abilities." Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next person on the list is Dale Melcher.
Good evening. My name is Dale Melcher, and I live at 61 Lyman Road in Northampton. My 2 daughters, now grown, went through the Northampton public school system just as MCAS was being introduced. Some of you may recognize me as the former chair of the NEF Small Grants to Educators Committee, when I've come before you to ask you to accept our grant funding so many wonderful, creative, and exciting projects. It's my experience with the Northampton Education Foundation that I want to draw on for my comments. Twice a year, the NEF receives proposals, usually more than we are able to fund, from educators in the Northampton Public Schools for projects that amplify and complement the NPS curriculum. For the most part, these projects are a counter to teaching to the test, something that educators repeatedly say in their proposals, that it is a negative and inevitable fallout of the high-stakes nature of the MCAS. We get proposals to build teaching gardens, paint murals, combat bullying, explore anti-racism, build jazz combos, investigate Emily Dickinson's life and poetry, bring dance, music, theater, and performance into our schools, allow teachers to dive deeply into new teaching practices or get comfortable with new technologies, and so much more. In my experience, educators in the NPS system have a desire to teach in a way that encourages students to be critical thinkers, lifelong learners, and informed, engaged citizens. Recently, we have seen an increase in proposals for projects that target the unique learning styles of different groups of students, students who are negatively impacted by the MCAS graduation requirement. The Thrive Act resolution before you would, by virtue of eliminating the high-stakes graduation requirement and creation of alternative whole child assessments, be a significant step in empowering teachers and further unleashing the professionally creative side of teaching that our educators want to engage in and that our children need. I look forward to reading the proposals that will blossom and that the NEF will continue to support once the Thrive Act is passed. Thank you.
Okay, our next is Rick Last.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rick Last, and I live at 226 Emerson Way in Florence. And I'm a retired teacher and a professional development consultant, and I'm seeking your support for the resolution endorsing the Thrive Act. The act, led by our own Joe Comerford, aims to achieve three objectives. Eliminating MCAS as a graduation requirement, eliminating state receivership, and developing alternative assessments. These actions are crucial initial measures in addressing the negative impact of MCAS in our schools. Let me focus on MCAS as an assessment tool. In my teaching days, some of it was before MCAS, when MCAS came along, for me it implied this test could evaluate student knowledge more effectively than teachers themselves. This notion undermines teachers' abilities to assess their students and implies their inadequacy. Good teachers typically define learning goals, design a curriculum, and teaching methods that accommodate various learning abilities and styles, and then employ diverse assessment tools such as portfolios, work samples, presentations. Multiple avenues exist for students to demonstrate their knowledge, and ongoing formative assessment allows teachers to gauge the effectiveness of their instruction. Any teacher can tell you there are multiple ways that a student can show learning. MCAS has effectively de-skilled teachers. MCAS prep takes over our school curriculum, and for many districts, leave less room for music, art, phys ed, other subjects. Teachers are the ones in the classroom with their students every day. We know about their histories, their families. We know what makes them happy, angry, eager to learn. We also know the best ways to assess knowledge. In light of this, it's patently unfair that a single high-stakes standardized test determines high school graduation eligibility. The Thrive Act established a special commission comprising legislators, DESE people, teachers, students, parents, administrators, and importantly, members from the underserved communities to explore alternative forms of assessment. This commission seeks to explore various authentic assessment methods addressing the need for comprehensive evaluation of student abilities. This is music to my education ears. MCAS is not working. The MCAS scoring system and bell curve reports guarantee that some students will fail, disproportionately affecting historically marginalized individuals. Massachusetts stands among only 8 states. Is that my buzzer?
Yeah, just.
Okay. I got
rapid.
about 3 sentences. 8 states that mandate standardized testing as a graduation requirement. I encourage the committee to analyze the data of students who do not graduate due to failing MCAS scores and share these findings with the public. Exploring alternative assessments and removing MCAS as a graduation requirement are embodied in the Thrive Act and will be a significant initial step toward fostering quality education that caters to all of our students. Thank you. Sorry
Thank you
for
so
running
much.
over.
Thank you. So I'm going to call on somebody that's on virtual, Nellie Taylor, if you would unmute and put your video on.
Hi folks, can
Good
you hear me
evening.
okay?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Nellie Taylor. I live in Florence on King Avenue, and I'm also the parent of a fifth grader at Ryan Road School. I taught in private school for 5 years before doing my student teaching for my master's degree at Northampton High School, and then I taught for 13 years at East Hampton High School in the mathematics department. I know the difference between public schools and private schools, and I have seen what happens at the elite boarding schools in the world, the cream of the crop schools, if you will. Let me tell you what, it's not the teaching that's the difference. It's the support that students get. And there is nothing as an educator that the MCAS exam ever told me about a student in my room that I did not already know from assessing them using the tools that I had as a formative assessment or summative assessment to get a reading on their skills that they were coming in with and what they needed to do to grow as a student and become more of an expert in mathematics. The MCAS system makes educators and schools compare and establish a pattern of growth year after year across different cohorts of students. That means fourth graders in 2001 had to do better than the fourth graders who took the test in 2000. It doesn't make any sense to compare students across the board. And like Mr. Last was just saying, the structure is set up so that schools will eventually fail and go into receivership. This is unacceptable. The MCAS regime takes millions of dollars out of public education and it puts it into private testing firms, and thereby like removing that money from public control. Those dollars are needed not for testing that accomplishes nothing for the educators in classrooms. Those dollars are needed for the supports that are actually available to students in the most advanced or the most highly regarded schools in the entire world. Those students are not allowed to fail. They have wraparound services. And what we need in our public schools statewide, instead of funding a test, is effective, highly qualified staff. We need counselors, we need speech and language pathologists, we need occupational therapists, we need autism specialists, we need paraeducators who are paid a living wage in every single classroom. And that is why I am urging you tonight to pass a resolution on the Thrive Act, because it's going to remove some of the imperative delivered to us by the state in the past, prioritizing effectiveness on a test over individuated learning that will help students grow in the ways that are appropriate to them with effective supports provided by highly trained specialists. Please vote tonight to pass the Thrive Act resolution as it's before you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So next person is Andrea Agito.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Agito. I am a teacher at Ryan Road Elementary School. I live in Florence, and I am the president of the Northampton Association of School Employees. And I want to start by giving honor and wonderful congratulations to all our retirees that you named earlier, and thank them on behalf of all the employees and students of the Northampton Public Schools for all their wonderful work for so many years. I would also like to start tonight by thanking the members of the ad hoc exit interview subcommittee and to the chair of that committee, Lena Patel. They worked diligently to create an exit interview process, and I would like to ask this committee to vote in favor of funding a consultant to do this important work as a first step towards retaining and recruiting a diverse workforce in our schools. So please vote in favor of having someone to do that work for us. I'm also not going to repeat all the wonderful words of the speakers tonight that spoke before me, but I would like to thank you for taking up the resolution in support of the Thrive Act, and ask you to please vote in supporting this important legislation. The MCAS is a biased punitive assessment that takes millions of dollars in funding away from our students every year. Please support this resolution and any future actions that we will take to abolish the MCAS in our schools. Thank you so much, and have a good night.
Thank you. So is there anyone else in person or on Zoom who would like to make a public comment, who hasn't signed up or hand up? Nope. Okay, I see that Evelyn is here. Evelyn Smith, are you ready to give your report?
Hi, yes, I'm ready.
No, it's not him.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, welcome, Evelyn.
Okay, hi.
Hey.
Okay, so it's the end of the year, so there hasn't been too much going on, but now that the seniors are gone, the hallways feel a lot less busy, which is kind of sad. Kids at NHS have been enjoying the weather when the air quality is not bad outside for lunch, which has been very fun. With sports coming to a close, many people in the track team are flying to Oregon to participate in the New Balance Nationals, which is very exciting. Student union cabinet elections happened today. So next year, our president is going to be Sabrina Hopkins. Our vice president is going to be Giselle Ohm. Our treasurer is going to be Frankie Adams Sternal. Our school committee rep is Zara Usman, who is a very nice girl. I'm very excited. And I was elected secretary. But it's going to be, we have a good lineup for the cabinet next year, so it's going to be good. And then also tomorrow night, there are 2 performances revolving like around the school kind of. So one is by the Northamptons and other students from the high school at Edwards Church. Pretty sure it's called Jam for Bread. So that's exciting. And then also a band, Misconception, which is a student band of seniors, is playing at Bombix tomorrow in Florence. And I think it's going to be their last performance since they're all seniors, but it's going to be good, I've heard. Does anyone have any questions about what's going on at the school?
Anybody? Any questions? No. Well, thank you. Is this your last student representative report then? Because you have a new rep for next year?
I think so, but I think I'm going to come to meetings to help mentor her.
That's great. Well, we really appreciate your work this year, and I'm sure that Zara will be appreciative of you mentoring her as well. So thank you so much, and have a great summer.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're moving on to announcements. Does anyone on school committee have any announcements? Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to congratulate the JFK Scrabble team for the really good performance that they had. I think it was actually about 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was a while ago, but it was since our last meeting. And one thing of note was that they placed 5th and had the highest scoring play for 194 points with the word Sharlock. So, very exciting. Scrabble is something that is near and dear to my heart. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Member Robbins?
Thank you. I want to report with great excitement that I am the school committee's representative to the Collaborative for Education's school board, which is an amazing group of many member districts in our area in Valley and in the hill towns. And we have collaborated together to create what we hope will be a body who are advocating together on legislative issues as one voice. So working hopefully with liaisons in our different member district schools, working on challenges that we all face in our districts in terms of funding, in terms of attention paid to student learning, in terms of possibly building support. It's a pretty exciting initiative, and we will be structuring it a little bit more tightly in the future. You might have received all of our districts received a recent letter about bills that are appearing now for hearings on June 12th, many of which are around charter school funding. So anybody who would like more information about that or who would like to be able to join in that effort, we'd be very happy to make that happen. And I just want to say thank you so much to the Collaboratives Board for being so engaging in moving forward with this action.
Thank you. Member Stein?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly congratulate all the 2023 graduates from Northampton High School and congratulate the district on a really wonderful ceremony. I heard from a lot of constituents that found it very moving, particularly Ms. Todd Hunter's speech, which I know many people have asked me for the video for, and which I understand will be available sometime late next week. So if you are interested in seeing that as well, it should be available, I think, on the YouTube NOM channels then. But just a huge congratulations to all the graduates. Fantastic job and best wishes as you take your next steps.
Thank you. I have an announcement from the mayor. At the May 11th, 2023 school committee meeting, the committee voted to have a school committee liaison to the English Learner Parent Advisory Council, LPAC. I have appointed member Seraphy Cox to serve as the liaison and have informed the LPAC, thanks to Family Engagement and English Learner Education Coordinator Lauren Barry and the members of the LPAC for advocating for this connection to the school committee, and thanks to member Seraphy Cox for serving. I also wanted to acknowledge that this is Pride Month, and those of you who celebrate it, it's exciting that it is a designated month, though sometimes I always wonder when there are designated months for things like African American or women's or whatever each month has a theme for. I think we need to celebrate these things every month, every day of every month. But I think particularly right now, the mood in the country in some areas makes safety and support a question, and I think we need to acknowledge in our school committee and in our schools that we are supportive of LGBTQIA+ students and their families. So happy Pride Month from the school committee. Okay, anybody else? Any other announcements? Okay, we have recommended actions, which is a vote for a consent agenda. There are a couple of items on this that I'm going to make a recommendation that we move, but I think we need a motion to approve the consent agenda, and then if there are ones to withdraw, somebody can, or I can as well. So do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda separately. After the consent agenda, I'd also like for us, if possible, to move section 9B up, since we have one lone visitor in our audience who hasn't yet spoken, who otherwise might be
here for that. Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second Member Levy's motion.
Are there any to remove before we vote?
Well, the May 11th minutes are not finished, they're not in the packet.
So that was what I was going to ask and suggest, that we remove the minutes.
The May 11th minutes.
The May 11th minutes, and also any minutes that have been just shared recently in the last couple hours.
Attorney Taylor checked through all those minutes, and it was my assumption, and she let me know they looked good, so it was my assumption that either the mayor was going to send you a message or Attorney Taylor would.
She actually suggested we have a special meeting for them.
Well, nobody told me. She's been looking at them since they've gone in all week, so, and
Well,
But we need to look at them.
About 4 o'clock today, she said she would recommend highly that we have a special meeting on June 14th to look at, so that we have an advance time to look at all.
They're done and they're in your packet.
Okay, so they're in your packet now, and we will, apparently, June 14th, and came up as a common meeting that we could all make, and that will be to devote to the minutes. So I'm removing those from the consent agenda. So what's left on there is the field trip approvals and the donation. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Robbins.
Yes.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Yes.
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
And Member Davis. Oh,
Yes.
Member Davis, yes, and Member Davis, yeah.
Yes.
And with gratitude to the Broadside Bookshop, and also happy trails to the NHS Latin classes, Italian, Italy trip in February. Sounds great. I wonder if they need a chaperone. I'm going to move up, as was suggested by Member Levy, the new business that requires people who don't need to stay for the rest of our meeting to, if that's all right with everybody, we're going to move it up, the new business. And we'll begin with the vote to approve the NEF small grants, and we have Josh Bedell.
That is the.
Oh, on, I see. I'm sorry. So we have Sam Hopper and Jennifer Sanders Ames. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
There we go. I'm just trying to find my camera here. There we go. Hi. I'm Sam Hopper. I'm a board member of Northampton Education Foundation, or NEF, and I'm an incoming co-chair of the NEF Small Grants Committee. Thanks for having me on your agenda tonight, and thank you for serving the community on school committee. I have the honor of working with my co-chair, Jennifer Sanders James, who unfortunately cannot come tonight, but I'm grateful for her work and her leadership. And I'm also really grateful to Dale Melcher, who you heard from earlier. She is our outgoing co-chair of Small Grants Committee, and she's done really great work leading this NEF program. And I just want to take this opportunity to do a super quick overview of NEF for folks in the community who aren't aware of us. We are a nonprofit organization serving the 7 public schools in Northampton. So that's the 6 in the NPS district plus Smith Folk. Our mission is to expand educational opportunities, foster creativity, and enhance the academic experiences in Northampton's public schools, which we do mainly through grant making. And I'll be talking to you tonight about our Small Grants to Teachers program. My NEF colleague Josh is going to share about grants through our endowment program. And then NEF also has a book fund, the Daniel Stephen Goldstein Fund for Arts in Northampton High School. And we also offer funding through time-sensitive grants. And we fund each of these programs with support from the community through donations and community support of our annual signature events, which you're probably familiar with, the Spelling Bee, our annual plant sale, and our newer annual event, the Trivia Bee. Tonight, I'm going to be asking you to accept funding that's been recommended both by the Small Grants Committee and the NEF Board for $3,500 for 2 applicants for our Small Grants Spring 2023 cycle. And before I tell you more about the 2 proposals, I'm going to go a little bit more on small grants. I know Dale shared some of that, and I'm really grateful. And I can't say it more beautifully than her, but I want to elaborate just a little bit more. We know there's been a lot going on in the community and our schools the past few years. Our educators and students are holding a lot, and we have a lot of talent and thought leadership in our community that can and do enhance our students' learning. And I want to be sure that folks know that NEF Small Grants program, we want to support bringing these ideas to life by funding proposals that are brought to the Small Grants program. Through Small Grants to Teachers, NEF has distributed over $1 million, and that's to create projects, events, and other opportunities that enhance student learning, professional development, and then also collaboration across our schools. Some examples of small grants that have been funded recently include SASH, which stands for Students Against Sexual Harassment, and that spanned, students at the high school and the elementary schools. Dale shared that our grants have supported expanding arts in our schools. There's murals that involve the students at all the NPS schools. And you're probably also very familiar with the program Empowering Youth, How to Be Anti-Racist with Tiffany Jewell, that's in all of our elementary schools that started as small grants. They are available in amounts of up to $3,000 per year, and grants that are submitted jointly that involve collaboration across 2 or more public schools are eligible for up to $5,000 a year. And awarded grants are eligible for subsequent funding for 3 years total. The grant money can be used to pay for costs like stipends for teachers, the grant administration time, substitute teachers, consultants to come into the schools, travel, transportation, materials, subscriptions, and any other supplies that are directly related to these proposals. We have 2 grant cycles each year, like Dale said, fall and spring. And we encourage applications that promote the development of creative and innovative teaching and learning initiatives that are consistent with both districts' goals. And we fund the development of these programs that apply both in the classroom during the school day and then also extracurricular activities, including one of the grants we're bringing to you tonight. We invite applications from teachers and administrators from the 7 Northampton public schools. And we also invite applications that are initiated by caregivers, community members, students, and local organizations, as long as they're done in collaboration with a teacher or an administrator at the school it's being proposed for. So the next round of applications for our small grants will be open in the fall, and folks can learn more and apply when the applications are open by visiting northamptoneducation.org. So thank you for hearing me to just share a little bit more there. I'll go on to the funding that we're asking you to accept from NEF for our spring 2023 Small Grants to Teachers programs. The first is titled Family Reading and Math Collaboration. This is at Leeds Elementary School for $3,000. The project leads are Joanne and Trader and Terry Flynn. And this is the second year of the grant. The first year was funded by Small Grants in fall 2021. And the second year really expands the collaboration. It's meant to connect the teachers, the educators, and the families to work together to support the learning of kindergarten and first grade students at Leeds. So this next round would bring in 3 workshops, 1 that would take place at the school at Leeds Elementary, and 2 to take place at Meadowbrook Apartments. And it's going to continue to focus on enriching reading and math through books, games, activities, and other sorts of hands-on learning. The program's also going to create a lending library this next round that'll have both books and activities to really give more access to a variety of math and reading materials and activities, so students and their families have more resources and tools outside of school to continue their learning. The program's also going to offer workshops to support caregivers, like getting them set up for library cards and helping them access other free resources that are available. And the second application that we're asking you to accept funding for is a college visit field trip. This would be at Northampton High School for $500. And the project leads are Audra Dinkwart and Karen Hidalgo, and this is a first-year grant. And essentially, high school counselors are going to take about 30 10th and 11th grade students to a local college. The trip's designed really to reach students who have less access to college as it is now. So perhaps it's kids who, they're the first generation in their families to attend college. They have less financial resources available to them. Students in special education, and students who are otherwise underrepresented, but want to continue their education after high school, and they might feel unwelcome or unsure of how to navigate applying to, reviewing, and attending college. So this is going to fund the counselors and students to take a bus. Actually, I think the PTO is paying for the bus, but they're going to take a tour of the school and then enjoy a lunch together at the dining commons. And that is all I have for you today, and I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
Anybody
you.
have any questions or comments? Member Levy?
No question, just want to thank you for your work and for your support of these really great initiatives in Northampton.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I echo that too, and I hope that with the advertisement that you gave tonight, Sam, there will be more grants to approve next time.
We hope so too.
Yep. Can I entertain a motion to approve?
I'd like to make I'll make a motion to approve the support financial support of the, to accept the NEF grants.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Member Miller's motion and Member Davis seconded. We have a roll call, please. What was that?
Member Daisy?
Member Daisy.
Shall I come back to Member?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Just a moment, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. Member Stein?
Yes, thanks to NEF for these.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
And Member Robbins?
Yep.
Thank you again, Sam, and NEF. Okay, we have a approval of the NEF endowment grants with Josh Bedell. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Appreciate the flexibility with the agenda.
Yeah.
My name is Josh Bedell, Northampton Education Foundation board member and co-chair of the Endowment Distribution Committee. Thanks for having me here tonight. Very happy to present this year's awards from the NEF Endowment Fund along with its named funds. The Bank ESB Fund, the Eli Daniel Nemitz Todd Memorial Fund, the Florence Bank Fund for Public Education, the Marie Hershkowitz Memorial Fund, the Northampton Area Pediatrics Fund, and the Principal Gwen Agna Fund for Northampton Public Education. In this funding cycle, we had more proposals than we knew what to do with. We received more requests than ever before, 12 proposals totaling over $290,000 in requested funds, which is a testament to the enthusiasm, creativity, and dedication of our district's educators, as well as the need for additional funding for enrichment and innovation in our schools. The distribution committee, composed of NEF board members, representatives from each school, Northampton Public Schools alumni, and current NHS students, had the difficult task of narrowing the proposals down to a budgeted amount of approximately $80,000. After an exhaustive process, we were able to fund 8 of these projects for a combined total award of over $85,000. This is among our largest total award ever, and is only possible thanks to the generosity of our community and the careful stewardship of our endowment. I believe the members have some information outlining each of the funded projects and the specific dollar amounts, but I will quickly touch on each one. First was Hitchcock Center Take It Outside. This project helps teachers in all of the elementary schools build capacity for utilizing outdoor space around their respective buildings. This project has been funded in 2 of the prior years. Year 3 of the project will extend from grades K to 3 to include grades 4 and 5. My daughter will attest that a visit from Katie the Squirrel Lady is always something to look forward to. Next is a homesteading course at NHS. From what we hear, this will quite possibly be the most enrolled new course in NHS history, requiring 3 sections or more in the first semester. Students will learn sewing, food preservation, foraging, mini farming, how to change a tire, and much more. Affinity groups will provide safe spaces for educators from underrepresented groups to participate in facilitated discussions throughout the school year. The first year of this project was a great success and has helped to attract and retain educators from diverse backgrounds. Early literacy and learning acknowledges that a large portion of students in our local early education centers graduate to Northampton Public Schools. Funding covers professional development at the pre-K level and direct support to families in nurturing early literacy skills. Imagined Worlds at JFK will combine art therapy, collaborative creation, and professional development, culminating in a school-wide painting party where students and families will create an original mural to be installed in an exterior wall here at JFK. Empowering Youth, How to Be Anti-Racist, builds on the very successful work with local author and educator Tiffany Jewell that has been funded by our small grants program. in prior years to bring themes of identity and anti-racism to all of our elementary schools. All Out Adventures, another repeat awardee, will offer inclusive cycling to special education students and peer volunteers at JFK and NHS. This year's work will expand on year one to include student volunteers from the general school population and will culminate in a community ride in the spring. Finally, Ryan Road Mindfulness Retreat will help to transform an unloved, underutilized interior courtyard at Ryan Road into a sensory retreat space where students can participate in hands-on social emotional learning, mindfulness, peer mediation, and restorative justice sessions. We're very excited about all these projects, and it was, quite frankly, we had our work cut out for us in narrowing it down to these 8 and working with the funding we had available. Lastly, I'd just like to mention my co-chair in the committee, Stan Shapiro, who is stepping down after at least 16 years leading the committee. Stan has quietly but effectively helped to lead the endowment into the thriving, robust resource it is today. So thank you, Stan. Thanks to the community for the generosity which has allowed us to make these grants, and thanks to this committee for your time and attention.
Thank you, Josh.
If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Does anybody have questions or comments? I just want to say thank you so much. I think this is really an exciting array of choices this time, and so it's all kinds of good things going to happen in the schools. So we need a motion to vote to accept.
Motion to accept the NEF grants.
Second?
So Member Levy made the motion, Member Robbins seconded it. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Levy?
Yes, with gratitude.
Member Miller?
Yes, again with gratitude.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Robbins? Wait, am I missing somebody? Yes, Member Robbins.
And Member Gazy.
Yep, I'll get her.
Me.
I'll get you, Holly. And Member Gazy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a presentation and discussion grading practices at the high school with Principal Worley. Your turn, Mr. Principal Worley.
Hi there, good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me. So I wanted to give just a quick summary of some of the work we've been doing and where we are. That's so that you'd have a sense. I think you had a copy of our newsletter recently, and it had a short description in there for you. Sorry. And so I thought I'd give you a little more detail behind that. So over the last few months, we've taken a fair amount of time as a faculty to look at the current status and think about where we'd like to head. And so we started by having in faculty meeting, and then gathered a lot of input from folks, and then brought that to the department chairs, and they developed a charge for a working group. Then the working group met several times and kind of put some detail to the broad strokes that the department chairs had developed. And then that came back to the faculty for some more discussion and input. That then is what led to the announcement in Hello Hamp. We also shared that with students and then asked for their input. And there was a opportunity for caregivers to provide feedback from Hello Hamp. So we've tried to make sure that we're communicating with, you know, all of the groups. And so the broad idea is that for next year, we're going to take a step back from requiring every teacher to use standards-based grading, although it will continue to be an option. We're going to discontinue use of Otis, which is the learning management system that we've been using as a grade book. We haven't really been using it as an LMS. And so that takes one layer of complexity out because it meant that folks had to look in two places. It also, the interface between Otis and Aspen, which is our student information system, was complicated. So it reduces the number of different places that a student or caregiver or teacher, for that matter, has to look to find information. And then teachers will have a couple of different models, because part of the idea was to create some flexibility while we continue our discussion about what are our goals, what are best practices. So a teacher so we'll be using a point system, a more traditional sort of underlying system, but we will provide both some training and some models, because you can still use that for standards-based grading, and there are departments and teachers who have done really good work and it's working well for them, so they can continue that. But for others, they can use a more traditional assignment-based system, or what I would suggest is a third kind of a middle option, which would be would be based on units. And so we'll give teachers some guidance on how to use that, and then obviously a lot of communication at the start of the school with students around how the grading is going to work, what they can expect. So it's helping us to address a bunch of the concerns, the complexity, the limitations. There's been some serious concerns about the definitions of the terms that we've been using. Proficient became a very broad category that didn't really allow for some clarity around levels of achievement. So it will help us with a bunch of those pieces and give us time then to kind of take a step back and work towards greater and greater level of consistency and clarity with our grading practices.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments for Principal Worley? Member Robbins?
I just want to say thank you so much. This was a really complex question that we landed in your ballpark as soon as you came. And it's lovely to hear that you've taken such a collaborative approach with faculty around looking for responses and solutions that best meet both their needs as educators and the needs for students in learning both what feels like habits of mind and habits of work, and that's what we were looking for. So many, many thanks. We know it's going to be a long process, and hope that caretakers have the patience to be able to work through this next step. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Member Stein?
Yeah, I wanted to echo Member Robbins' appreciation. I'm very impressed with how you've been able to move this forward in a short amount of time and put together a plan that really brings everyone together, and I'm really grateful for that. So thank you, and thanks to everyone else that's doing the hard work at the high school to find the best path forward for our students and our educators. I have one question that I don't know if you'll know the answer to, but I'm just sort of curious if you have a sense of how standards-based grading is interpreted by college admissions counselors, or like how familiar it is to those entities. If you have any sense of this, it would be just great to hear.
Sure, I'll give you a quick answer, and there's certainly a much longer conversation that would be interesting to have about this, but I think we're a ways from there. So we've part of the challenge is that we're still producing a traditional transcript and report card. So a lot of what we're doing is in the interaction between students and teachers, which is great. But it's then translated into traditional points, traditional grades, traditional grade point average, and that informs report cards and transcripts. So there is a whole movement. There's a great organization called the Mastery Transcript in Connecticut that's doing a lot of work on developing a different model. So a model that would be a proficiency-based or competency-based transcript as well as report card, so that that it's a more accurate reflection of the skills, knowledge, and understanding that students develop in school. And they have worked really hard with post-secondary education and found that there is an openness and a willingness to work with that kind of transcript. But we're not there yet. So that would be something for us to discuss down the road if we did decide to embrace that kind of direction.
And just one quick follow-up is part of now that I'm understanding the translation to regular grade point average, I'm thinking about your comment about the proficiency earlier. So I would imagine if you have like a category that's somewhat broad, then it's hard to, or like when it gets translated into GPA, it can lead to other issues. Is that right?
That's exactly right, and that's one of we get deep in the weeds here, but that is definitely one of the outcomes that was concerning to a lot of folks when they saw what translated from a score on a rubric to a letter grade on a transcript, and we have to unwind that and then look at how do we do that in a way that gives more clear information.
Thanks so much.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yeah, thank you. Principal Worley, I'm curious, over the last year or so, we've heard a lot from our student representatives and other students in the high school about the communication that was done with students about the changes to grading and confusion and maybe even some frustration around the differences between different classes and differing levels of understanding, both between different students and different teachers with the changes. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts in terms of how to both involve students in this process and roll out communications about decisions, etc.
So it's been interesting kind of learning the culture of communication, and I can clearly see now why that's been challenging. And so I do have some thoughts about that, and what I've done so far is a couple things. We started this year just recently having each mentor group. So as you know, we have mentor day, mentor block on Monday, and then flex block the rest of the week. And so each student has a day with a consistent teacher every week. And so and those are small groups of 15 students or so. So I asked them to each choose a student to be a mentor rep. And then they are who I invited along with the student union to meet and give feedback. So it's not well normed and built out yet, because and I've done this before successfully, so I do have a picture in mind of what it might look like. So if it worked well, so then they would have a conversation here in detail, from me or whoever, whatever the issue happened to be. They would be able to bring that back to their mentor group for discussion, feedback, conversation, and it could be this kind of back and forth where there's, it's a little hard to hear from 900 students on a regular basis, but you can hear from 60. And you can even break that down depending on the issue. It might be more important to seniors. So it creates a structure where there's, in addition to the student union who has some formal role, kind of a broader cross section. It's a little easier to represent 15 students than to, put your name up for election for the whole school or whole grade level. So I'm hoping that over the course of the next year, that's a structure that we can build out for communication around whatever important issues. Over time, what I found is it was possible that students then asked about issues that they wanted to bring to the table and use that structure. I'm hoping that the student union sees it as valuable. I mean, we've talked about it, and they certainly endorse the idea, but they could also use it as a way to, some of the projects that they're working on, get more input, but also get the word out. So that's to me, one piece. As you know, we're also going to be rolling out Parent Square. So email has, as you may know, teenagers, and it's more than teenagers, but teenagers certainly aren't big fans of email. It's not how they communicate. And so we've used email, and it's not particularly effective. We are, as you know, rolling out Parent Square, but it also has a component, Student Square. So I'm hoping that might also be a way to communicate and get information out to students. It has an app, functions much more like a tool that they're familiar with using, and it can be, like the blog posts where they can get information, but it also has some two-way communication potential. So I'm hoping to keep exploring and finding ways so that students have both the information, but also opportunity to provide input.
I can see you have put so much thought into this. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Member Miller?
I just wanted to say that I also appreciate that the degree to which you have collaborated with all of the staff and gotten feedback, and the loop of that is very effective, and I have some faith that after teachers sort of weigh out all of the differences and discuss it thoroughly, that will then be passed along to students. I also want to say that the guidance department will be very helpful in terms of the way in which they send transcripts to colleges and higher education options. And I know that with every transcript, a description of the high school and its system of grading goes along with the transcript. So I'm sure that that letter will explain all the systems that you use for grading, and I think the guidance department will be very helpful in that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other comments? You're up again, Principal Worley, for the next professional development plans for the high school.
Yeah, and this was actually kind of a follow-up to the grading piece, but I kind of wanted to separate it out a little bit. And so, as you may know, there's a history in the district of using a couple of days right after school. It's been called Curriculum Camp. And so one of the things that I'm really interested in us doing, and it's ultimately in the service of curriculum, is to, but also kind of unpacking where we are with the standards conversation. And so we're going to do a 2-day workshop. We've hired an expert on competency-based learning. And we have about a dozen folks signed up. Lauren, Marion, and I are also in conversation. I'm hoping to get a few middle school folks to join us and try and make it a secondary conversation over time. But the idea is to look at what are the key components of effective competency-based learning, which includes, so you can use the language of standards, you can use the language of competency, learning target, but what does a worthy competency look like? What does effective assessment of that include? And then what does feedback to students look like? And down the road somewhere, that includes grading. But I think the starting point is that teaching and learning cycle of learning target, teaching, instruction, assessment, feedback, sometimes reassessment, sometimes relearning, but really having a strong agreement on what those components are, and then also agreeing on some language. Because part of what's happened is what we're calling standards right now it's a very broad number of things, from these, what I would call these big transdisciplinary school-wide skills, to very content-specific narrow standards. So if we can develop some common language, that would be really helpful. And one of the things I didn't mention in the earlier part is, while teachers aren't required to use standards in their grade book, we will still have an expectation that for every unit and every assessment, teachers are being very clear what the standards or learning targets are. So that's still important communication between teachers and students. It's just not going to be required that it be in the grade book. So this will help us work towards, and this will be an important part of our work next year, work towards some shared understanding of what our language is, what our definition of effective learning is. And then there's a second bucket, which we're still isn't as far along as that, but we're going to be doing some work, continuing some work we've been doing, talking about school community, climate, and culture. And we've been using some, so far this year, we've been working with authors Bell Lang and Tim Klein. They have a book called How to Navigate Life. The central premise is around the idea of purpose and belonging, and that organizations that are purpose and belonging driven schools are much more effective. And so we've been looking at and talking about what are the opportunities in our school to build a sense of belonging, and what is our shared purpose in school. And so that, and then we added the idea of joy to that, to make the acronym PB&J. Couldn't help ourselves, but also because I'm really a big fan of Goldie Muhammad's work, Cultivating Genius, and she has another book out, and it's an important part of her framework of effective curriculum development. And so that community work, we have a great opportunity with the mentor block and flex time. It's work teachers do all day, every day in their classrooms. But I think it really, particularly after the experiences of the last 3 years through the pandemic, I think we really need to be very deliberate about building community and ensuring that every student has a sense of belonging, and reaching out to students who may not have felt that in the past, or and having a process so that we're capturing every student to make sure that they're full members and that of the community, and that they're engaged, inspired, and ready to learn. So there's still some summer work to do on planning that, but that'll be another important part of the professional development work that we'll be doing over time.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I just want to thank you, Principal Worley. You started in January and you've caught up big time in so many initiatives that have been on your plate from the beginning, and we really, really appreciate the work that you're doing and the collaborative approach that you have. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more person who doesn't usually have to stick around, so we'll do that and then move back to the regular agenda. And that is the vote to approve this special education coordinator job description and Josh Dixon. Hello, Josh.
Hi, thank you. So as we've talked about a few different times during the budget process, part of the restructuring for the special education department is expanding the role of what used to be called ETLs to our elementary schools. So our ETL job description, which stands for Evaluation Team Leader, was last updated in 2017. And so this is the sort of new and improved version, which also changes the role from ETL to Special Education Coordinator, as ETLs typically only engaged in meetings for initial evaluations and reevaluations. And the role of Special Education Coordinator is really going to be looking at expanding the scope of the position to include all team meetings and supporting and being a building-based level support for our special education teachers. And so it's the same job description that was in your packet previously when I first presented the draft to you. And it has gone through another look through by Andrea Gito and other NACE executive leadership members. And the only two recommendations that they had, which are highlighted in purple on the electronic copy, but I'm going to tell you what they are, was changing coordinates and ensures consistent application of school district special education procedures, which is number 2 under essential functions, to coordinates and supports, so that there was no ambiguity around any supervisory role of this position, as it is a Unit A position, which is the same unit as our teachers. And then the second piece is under performance responsibilities. On the 12th bullet, after Aspen, their recommendation was just to add language that says and/or other district or state platforms, in case in the future we may change from Aspen to PowerSchool or some other student information system, and in case the state adds different data input platforms for us to utilize as we move forward. So that is those are the only two changes from the original version that you received. Except for a grammatical piece of making sure that all of my verbs were plural, so that there was consistency across the board. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions or comments? Member Robbins?
Hi, Josh. Thank you for this. I'm wondering if there is urgency in approving this before Dr. Bonner is officially on board in the district.
Sure, so there is. So in order for me to post the 2 coordinator positions, I have to have an active job description to do that, and this is your last meeting before August. And so my fear would be that if there wasn't an approval vote, even if there's an approval vote with modifications, that I wouldn't be able to actually post the positions, and we wouldn't have any support at the elementary schools for the start of the upcoming school year. So that's sort of
I think though that you had said that you had already identified people that were moving from other positions to these positions. Is that not the case?
That is not the case.
So you're hiring people from outside to fill these positions?
So I don't know if there is any internal interest in movement. I'm assuming that there will be some, but I can't be sure until we actually post the position.
So I am a little confused by that, because I think when we approved this, it was, the picture at least I had was that you were moving, we were not doing new hires. We were moving people from existing positions into the coordinator positions.
So
So
we're
the
posting-
ETLs were becoming the coordinators.
So at the middle and high school, those positions who are ETLs now, who are employees, would be the special education coordinator. So those would be the exact same positions. At the elementary level, those positions don't exist.
So did we know that when we approved that we were creating 2 new hired positions, additional funding for that?
So it's not additional funding, and yes, you did know that there would be 2 new positions at the elementary levels. There was discussion of so because we eliminated a Unit B position, which is one of the associate directors, there is potential that that person would be interested in the role, which could be what you're remembering in terms of that sort of transfer, but I won't know that officially until there's a position for them to request a transfer into, if that makes sense.
It does. I would want us to be assured that there are no additional expenditures in the budget that we approved to these 2 new positions that you're asking for the descriptions of.
Sure. So there should be no additional budget expenditures. The salaries would come from the elimination of the associate director, one of the 2 associate directors that we have this fiscal year. And then the balance is coming from the reservation of our significant disproportionality funds, which is part of our IDEA grants.
I don't remember that part, but thank you.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes, I wanted to make a motion to approve the job descriptions as outlined by Josh Dixon. And just a note that what Josh was explaining is how I remembered the budgeting to be. So that was my understanding.
I'll second. Okay, Member Seraphy
Oh,
Cox
yes.
made the motion and Member Davis made the second. Could we have a roll call, please? Or any discussion now that we have a motion on the floor? Okay, let's have a roll call.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Robbins?
No.
And Member Gazy?
Yes.
Okay, that was passed, approved. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Is it too late? It's just a question to clarify.
Okay.
I'm approved, I vote yes. Can I just ask, Josh, can I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Is he still there? Are you still there? Okay.
Yes.
So it's 2 new positions at the elementary level. And so those folks, whoever that is, in those positions will kind of divide their time? Since
Yes,
it's not sort of a building-based person, there's just one person that leads and they're all set. They're gonna have to, it's a little logistical thing.
Sorry. So it would be 2 positions, and each position would have 2 elementary schools that they're responsible for.
Uh-huh.
That would be divided, however, that may be needed in order to accomplish the tasks that we ask of them.
Okay, thank you. I was just starting to picture the moving around. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Now I see that we have another person who's not going to have to stay the whole time. Let's move up to the item E in the reports and recommendations, if that's okay with everyone, for the ad hoc exit interview subcommittee report with Lena Patel. I see, Lena, you came on? Oh, there she is. Lena, are you ready to give a report? She is. There's a square for her.
Let's see.
Let's just see.
I just made her a co-host.
just texted her to see if she's. Nope. Oh. Lena Patel, are you there? No, okay. Well, when she comes on, we can move to her item to not keep her up. And we'll go up to reports and recommendations, which begins with rules and policy and member Gazy.
I'm so confused.
Okay, let's see, we've got a number of items for second reading and some for first reading, so I'll start with the second reading first. We have, what is this? Let's start with BEDB, the agenda. Do you want me to share my screen so that people at home can see it?
Sure.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that would be great for people.
Yeah. Oh, let me.
You're a co-host.
We'll see. Hold on, I just have to do this, and I'm sort of not very good at it. Show share screen. Okay. I want to do this one. Okay. The BEDB, the agenda format. As you recall, in oops. In March, we decided to try to come up with the idea of someone to notify people whose agenda items did not get put on the agenda. And at the April 13th school committee, we decided that that person would be the vice chair. So we amended that. We changed resident down here to change the word to resident. We took out the fourth paragraph of the draft policy, which you can see here. This one, right? Is it up enough that you can see it? There we go. Can you see that with in my thing? Well,
what are you referring to?
I'm referring to the fourth paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is blocked out right here. That was the part about the school committee can discuss topics in different orders than listed and vote on issues if they naturally arise. After consultation with Attorney Taylor, we decided to take that out because it's already embedded in Open Meeting Law 2019-158. So I think that had been an area of concern. And we did with the, down here in the paragraph about, we asked for the agenda with supporting materials to be distributed no less than 3 business days prior to the meeting, to permit adequate preparation time. And then we added down at the bottom here some updated cross-references and corrected cross-references. So that was working on the comments that we received last time. Are there any comments, suggestions, or do you want to move to vote on that?
Yeah, Let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay with everyone if we just do that? Okay. So why don't you go to the next one, Member Gacy?
Oh, I couldn't hear what they said.
We were going to vote them all together. So
Oh, okay.
if you go to the KDB,
So the next one is KDB, which I think is here, which is the public's right to know. We basically took the suggested updates from MASC here, we talked with Member Stein about his concern about the process for accessing student records. And so just to make sure everything is tightened up, I'm going to ask the school committee to refer policy JRA, which is student records. But really, public's right to know does not refer to student records, obviously. And then the next one is JICA, student dress code. And that is pretty much all set. We've got the Crown Act references in there, and that is updated. So those are the three policies that some policy is bringing for a vote tonight. Emily,
Okay.
Member Seraphy
Member
Cox?
Seraphy Cox?
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to make a motion to approve all three of these policies for their second reading. Policy BEDB, KDB, and JICA.
Second.
So Member Seraphy Cox made a motion to approve these three policies and seconded by Member Robbins. Could we have a roll call? Oh, any discussion? Nope. Okay, let's have a roll call.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Robbins?
Yes.
Member Gazy?
Yes.
And Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
And Member Stein?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. So now we have a first reading.
Now we have the first reading of the norms, and as you recall, we had brought a draft. Member Seraphy Cox brought a draft last meeting, and there were it wasn't really in a correct format. So Member Robbins had a good idea about how to structure that. And I'm just seeing which one it is here. And so this is what we came up with. Member Robbins, would you like to describe how, all about this?
Right. I had just suggested that we try to create a T-chart for this, that we had some very clear, brief norms that functioned well for us in terms of communication and how we work together. So looking at what our previous sort of brainstorming session was, I put down what my impression was of what we agreed to, and then we as a committee sat down and wordsmith them a little bit, and this was our proposal to bring back to the committee. And we also, so we had two parts to it. So one was that we would have this working norms piece that we would all hold ourselves responsible for implementing. And then we went back and looked at the norms and standards that the 2021 school committee had approved. And we thought that was a really excellent document. We thought we might just call it standards. So these would be the standards. They're all things that we've talked about in our own process, but it really writes it out clearly. The previous school committee clearly spent time on this. I think Kaya Goldman was a key part of this, and Laura Fallon, and we appreciate their work a lot. So keeping these present for us and referring to them consistently might be something that helps us have really strongly well-facilitated meetings. That was our recommendation.
So, thank you, Member Robbins. So we're bringing this for our first reading to see what you think.
Great, thank you. Is there any comments? Yes, Member Levy?
One of the things I really liked that came out of our retreat was the suggestion that we think of these as opposed to norms, community practices. I've stolen that and used it in every other facilitation that I've done since, because I really like that idea of thinking about this as something we aspire to, that we all need to practice in order to get better at, and that it's a lot to ask of ourselves, and we want to have patience with ourselves as we continue to grow in our ability to work in community. And so I wonder if rather than calling them norms, we could call them community practices.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
I would love that. I actually once worked with a group where I came in and they had a cutout of Norm from Cheers on the table, because it is such a weird term in lots of ways. So I would
That's
say great. Yeah.
I do too. I mean, this is a first reading, but if the rules and policy would take that under advisement, that's great. Member Stein?
I had two questions and then one sort of piece of feedback. So are we considering both the grid and this other document for first reading? That they're two separate things, but we're considering them together, right? Is that correct?
The grid, yes, I think so, because the grid we really liked the community practices one. Let me see if I can pull it up. Is that this one? Yes.
That's the
we really
standards.
like these standards, and we're using it as a reference to develop the renamed community practices. So does that answer your question?
I think so. So I guess what we will eventually pass on a second reading, right, would just probably be the document you have up right now, right? Not the grid is to help do that. It's not like a separate piece, or would we pass both together?
We were thinking, I believe, that, where is it? Is this it? No. Oh, God, did I lose it? We were thinking, I was thinking that perhaps there could be, as in the MASC policies, there could be a reference at the bottom of the T-chart to this other 2021, I believe, document.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Sort of like we've done in other policies.
Okay. So one question I have on this, the document that's up. So under the subcommittee section, subcommittee ad hoc committees and workshop sessions, there seems to be some ambiguity in the last sentence. In my reading of what does it mean to honor the work and recommendations? So you could read that to mean whatever the recommendation from a subcommittee is, we're going to vote for it, we're going to approve it. Or you could read, it less stringently. I wouldn't want to have a norm or a standard that says that whatever a subcommittee recommends sort of binds in a way the way the whole committee votes.
Well, I think that is sort of when we say we strive to move their work forward and not redo it. When you strive, you're honoring the work that they've done. However, people come up with things that we have not yet noticed, or phrasings that that we include in moving from a first reading to a second reading, which is why we have there. I did not understand that to lock us forward into just you guys being a rubber stamp of the work we've done. I have never understood that.
Yeah, I just know in the previous school committee, this was referenced with that expectation in open meetings around certain votes. So I would want some clarity that, I agree with you, because like our experience on the budget and property is the same. Like we might come with a recommendation and then the discussion opens up other avenues, presents new information, and we might adjust things. So I don't have the language. I could try to add some suggestion into the side while we're doing this all during the meeting, but just, something that is clear that we are not obligated to follow like every recommendation with a vote affirmatively accepting it, because that's how it was used a number of times in the previous school committee based on this language. So for the future, I would want to avoid that too.
Member Seraphy Cox, can you chime in on this?
We have, the next hand is Member Seraphy Cox.
Just to agree with Member Gazy that I think the second part of the sentence, "we strive," speaks to what Member Stein, speaks to Member Stein's concerns, and therefore I don't share those concerns with that sentence. So.
Thank you. Member Miller?
I was going to say something similar in that, to me, we honor that work and we strive to move their work forward. It doesn't mean that we approve it. It doesn't mean that we are voting on it. It means that we're going to work from that recommendation and move on with it in our discussion. But it doesn't say anything about we're going to approve it or vote on it. I don't feel like it's necessary to add anything.
Okay, thank you. Member Robbins?
I see that, and I wonder whether or not it would meet Member Stein's concerns if we just took out "and not redo it." Because for me, the power of that sentence is in striving to move the work forward. And not redo it does feel like it's a block in that sense. And I do remember the reference to the last school committee, or I remember there being a conversation about it. So it certainly was open to some different interpretations at that time. So I wonder if it would be something folks could consider around, we honor the work and recommendations of subcommittees, we strive to move their work forward. If that encompasses it.
Member Levy?
I remember this school committee having issues with this when we were trying to update mask policies or COVID policies that may or may not have been related to masks. It's all a blur at this moment in my mind. Yeah. Where we had sent documents to the Rules and Policy Subcommittee. We had asked them to do the work. Then they brought it back and we spent hours wordsmithing, and I think this very much pertains to that. I think if we as a school committee have thoughts, we need to send that to the subcommittees and let the subcommittees do the work, and not spend our time in school committee meetings addressing the work that really belongs in subcommittees. So to me, that's where that is. It doesn't, to me, mean we're not discussing things or we're not disagreeing even perhaps with the recommendation of a subcommittee. It just means that we recognize we have subcommittees for a reason, and we send things to subcommittees, and we need those subcommittees to do the work.
What if we actually say that expressly in here? So, move their work forward, and we're honoring their work and recommendations of subcommittees. We strive to move their work forward, and the deeper discussions take place in the subcommittees. So, I mean, it might be possible that sentence really does require us to say, if there's a deeper conversation, the school committee can contribute to it, but it goes back to the subcommittee to revisit it.
Member Davis. And
Sort of adding on to that, to be clear, do we need to say what Member Levy said, something like, communicate with the subcommittee after the first reading as the process, I mean, or is that redundant? Like, is that supposed to be something that everybody just knows that we do? Like, that's the moment to give comment for their deeper analysis of, instead of after the fact when they've wordsmithed something amazing, like this was a lot of work. I guess I'm just really echoing what Member Levy is saying, that we don't want it to be redundant. Like, why have a subcommittee if we're gonna do it all with the larger group? But I think the not redo it is the thing that feels hard for people, I think. I don't know.
Maybe something like, and let the subcommittees do the wordsmithing, just something like that.
As I think, just follow up to my point. I think you all, as a subcommittee, have heard us. Now, take it back.
Take it back, exactly.
And bring us another version that takes into consideration what we're saying.
Yeah, you can talk about this. Member Stein?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Member Gazy if she could give me edit access to put in a note for something for you guys to consider when you go back. And then I just wanted to point out sort of the differences among subcommittees. So in the example we're talking about here with rules and policy, it's often impossible to avoid doing the wordsmithing as a group because we have a first and second reading. The second reading, we often adopt them. And because of open meeting law, these are really the only ways we can collaboratively do this. I was in attendance at the last rules and policy meeting and was able to give feedback for one or two of the policies that we just approved for a second reading. So that is a good practice, but some of that is unavoidable because of the way this is structured by the law and how we have to do it. But not all subcommittees are like that. So wordsmithing is really only in relation to rules and policy. We can think about the Superintendent Evaluation Committee. We can think about the Budget and Property Committee. We can think about the Curriculum Committee. Like, all of these committees are doing work, and for me, it is partially the redo it. It is sort of a ambiguous, hard line that you can't or shouldn't undo a challenge what a recommendation is from a subcommittee, and that those come at us differently, and the opportunity for collaboration and work on those are also different. There's not first and second readings. They're just different committees. So I don't want us to think about this concern I have solely in reference to the Rules and Policy Committee, because there's a diverse number of committees that we have, collective bargaining, especially all these committees. So I would just ask that the Rules and Policy Committee think about the differences in the types of committee work when they look at edits around this. Thanks.
So I make a motion to send this back to Rules and Policy.
Yes, but correct me if I'm wrong, are we not supposed to edit a document?
We can if it's during meetings.
During meetings.
And this is a first reading, so we don't need to make motions to send things back. They automatically go back.
Well, I'm a little confused because there's a vote on here to approve school committee norms.
Yeah, I think
but it's a first reading.
It's on
It's a
here,
possible vote, so
I was confused about that vote too, and my name's on it, so I was gonna suggest that we continue that. Yeah, because we're having the discussion right now and it's a first reading.
Okay.
I did
agree.
share, Member Stein, with you. Check your email. You should have editor access.
So it has to be done during the meeting? Is that what the? Just
Member
so I'm
Stein
sure.
wants any comments should be done during the meeting.
Member Miller?
I just think that if you're going to give access to edit, I think that should come to all of us, because I also
absolutely.
have some thoughts about this. And I, first of all, think that the beauty of the statement is its brevity. And I do agree that we do need to add something, that discussion happens and then it goes back to the subcommittee, but that this is the time for discussion. And I just don't, I hear Member Stein's concerns. I just don't want to make this statement. I think all of us need to have some input, because I don't want it to be a lengthy statement.
Yes, I'll, right now I'm giving all of you access that don't have it already.
Can we do that? I'm sorry.
I can.
Parliamentarian member Sophie Cox, could you weigh in on that?
On whether she can give access?
I'm so sorry. I was single parenting this evening, and was pulled away for a brief moment. Can you restate the question?
I'm just asking for clarification about editing a document.
Yes, that in terms of between the meetings,
Yes.
you can't edit it between the meetings. You can
Right.
send written communication to the chair of the subcommittee, saying, this is my input for the next subcommittee meeting, like in an email, but you can't comment in the shared document. You could make your own copy of the document and comment directly in that and send that to the subcommittee chair. Is that what you were wondering?
Yes.
We're talking about in this meeting, though.
But right now.
But in this meeting, Member Sophie Cox, it's appropriate for all of us to have edit access and make edits when we're doing it together publicly, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so that's going back and I don't know how this works, but I think we do need to eliminate the item G in new business, because it's redundant since this is being worked on by the Rules and Policy Committee. Does that meet everybody's agreement?
Yep.
Okay, I'll just take that off. All right, so we're sending those back for reconsideration and bring to us for a second reading and a vote. Thank you. Lena is here, and I would love to bring Lena up now for letter E, Ad Hoc Exit Interviews Subcommittee, and Lena Patel, who is the chair.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Hi, Lena. Thank you.
Sure. I'm sharing a couple of updates on behalf of the Ad Hoc Subcommittee on Exit Interviews. One is related to the motion made last school committee meeting about starting a district-wide reading group of the Green River Research Report, and one is about the hiring of a consultant, an HR consultant, to perform exit interviews for the districts. So I'll start with the reading group. We talked about it as a group and just sort of brainstorm some questions of what the goals of the group would be, what it might look like, and what next steps would be. I'll read for you what we decided the goals for the group would be: to review and discuss last year's recruitment and retention study, implications and recommendations for increasing the racial diversity of the educator workforce, to create a supported space for processing and reflection around the experiences and recommendations included in the study, and to present recommendations that emerged from reading group members to the ad hoc subcommittee for review by the school committee. For what it might look like, we thought about preparing some kind of flyer for principals to distribute in September that could be spread in school newsletters and staff communications, and also in other spaces like affinity groups and networks like that. We thought that the reading group itself should decide the frequency of the meetings, with a soft deadline of finishing by January of 2024. And we want this to be open to all members of the NPS community. That could be students themselves, staff, caregivers, families are involved in reading and making sense of this report and communicating back to us as an ad hoc group, which will continue to meet. Our next steps were to pick the facilitator. The ad hoc group recommended me, which I would be happy to do as a stipended position. We're presenting this proposal to you now. We thought that it might make sense to invite Dr. Bonner and Reel to the conversation as well, because it overlaps with a lot of those schools as well. And if approved, we would create a flyer as an ad hoc group for distribution in September. Any questions about that?
Any questions, comments from members? Member Seraphy Cox.
I am just curious about the budget implications and that sort of thing, and maybe it's a question for Bobby. Well, I guess just if you could talk about the money, whomever feels prepared to talk about that.
Bobby, do you feel prepared to talk?
I don't really know exactly how much they're looking at and when it would begin. So if I had some information there, I could probably look to see where we could find funding. And I assume this would begin in after July, so it would be for FY24.
Yes, we were thinking it would start in September. What I recall is that it's there's some kind of set stipended amount for this sort of position that's already been established. So it would be some kind of hourly stipended rate.
A stipended rate for the facilitator position, which is the position that the ad hoc subcommittee recommended you for.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Which that made sense because then I could sort of report those recommendations back when I report to the school committee.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
that's
it's
separate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bobby.
I'm sorry. So it's a stipended position. So it's done through the union where there's a MOA for that, or is it?
We would have to do an MOA for it, yeah. All of that would have to come through, but we thought that it would be potentially monies that we could use from the tailings that we did not assign to other resources. Bobby felt that the money from that probably, or most likely, could be allocated to the school choice account. Whether or not we can pull from that, we had talked about possibly having a sustainability account, but it's actually a fairly modest amount of money. I think we do have the document in our folder. Lena, do you remember what sort of the estimate was for the facilitator, for the consultant, sorry?
Yeah, I think we have numbers for that, but not for the, I don't know what the stipend amount is, but it sounds to me like it is established.
This says $75 an hour, and then we had, what you said was 30 hours? Or is that
for the consultant?
That's for the consultant, yeah. And then the stipend for the facilitator is something that we would need to check with Bobby about those amounts and with NACE.
Right.
So Member Stein?
Yeah, I had a in the weeds question that I think Member Robbins just outlined a potential solution for if we're able to move some of those tailings for the stipend into a revolving account that we could then draw on. But the other question I had for Bobby is, and I know we haven't gotten it yet, Lena, but on the consultant part, I'm wondering if it's possible for us to do a similar thing or prepay for that consulting work if it needs to hit the books before July 1.
We don't prepay. We can't prepay.
Okay.
Our auditors would pick that up right away. So, unfortunately,
even like when we prepay for, a subscription is prepayment, right? Like all of these things are prepayment. You don't access until later on.
Right.
Other retainers would be prepayments. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, the subscription you're going to get, sometimes the problem with paying people ahead of time is that, something happens, something falls through, the work isn't performed, or, I mean, there's a million things that can happen when you're talking about people, so it's really bad practice to prepay in that situation. Even with subscriptions, we probably shouldn't do, you know, as much as we do, but we're not alone in that, I know. But yeah, with people and hours, it's really kind of hard to do that.
And is it possible to do the same thing that Member Robbins described for the stipend for the consultant as well? Would we be able to allocate funds and then draw them from school choice after July 1?
We could if the school committee chooses, yeah.
Thank you.
Member Miller?
Lena, I don't know if I'm totally off base here, but given the proposal that we had in our packet from the consultant and the number of hours they were estimating, it came out to something like $2,250. It wasn't a huge amount. Is that right?
That's right. This was a small proposed number. I had heard from Glenn that it sounded like about $3,000 had been found somewhere as a funding source. And that was what I shared with Christine, and we sort of backwards planned from there based on her hourly rate. I'm happy to talk a little bit about that proposal now, if there aren't more questions about the reading group.
I'll just clarify that I asked Bobby to see if there were other funds other than what are known as tailings, because tailings were to go into the school choice fund. And that was an amount of money that she said that was possible to be available to this. Right?
And I think, yes.
Yes.
Yep, you're correct. And I think we can look at ESSER 3 to see what's left there, because it is such a minimal amount. And that would probably be really good use of ESSER funds, you know, for retention and whatnot, to find out how we can read it, so.
Thank you, Bobby. Okay, so Lena, do you want to tell us about the
Sure. So I've been in contact with Christine Dutton of Dutton Consulting for a couple of months. I presented her sort of tentative proposal at the school committee meeting in March, where she had just shared her hourly rate of $75 an hour and shared some descriptions of what possible projects might look like. The goals of the project are to measure employee satisfaction, school climate and culture, professional capacity and support, and equity and inclusion within our school system. She spoke about helping us to develop an exit interview tool like a survey in a really thoughtful and intentional way, which the ad hoc subcommittee felt was really important to kind of go slowly and be thoughtful about this data collection process as we're developing it, and that some fraction of those survey respondents would be invited for one-to-one interviews with her. So if you see in the cost breakdown that's newer, that has that $3,000 amount, she describes where some of those hours might go with creating the tool, just presenting data to us as an ad hoc group, conducting actual interviews, and cohering data to share with other stakeholders. She also sent me some background about past projects she has coordinated and facilitated with other types of nonprofit organizations. That's included in the packet as well.
Thank you. Is your hand up again, Member Stein? Okay. Member Stein?
I just realized that members of the public might not know what we're talking about when we're talking about tailings and the way we're talking about funding this. And I just wanted to briefly say that when we're talking about tailings, we're talking about money left over from the fiscal year 23 budget, 22-23, that wasn't spent either for numerous reasons, people leave a position, there's not a budget line, etc. So, and I also want to point out what Member Agnes said, is that money is being swept into the school choice revolving account as part of the larger effort to plug the deficit that the overspending of it caused. So when we are taking that money out, we are also eating away at that deficit reduction. So that's part of the equation we need to balance, because essentially we've already spent these tailings because we're just trying to cover the debts that were acquired the last 3-4 years. So I just, for the public watching, that's sort of the terms, and that's what we're talking about in terms of the funding.
Thank you. I just have a question, maybe it's for Bobby. Can the school committee hire a consultant, or how does this work then?
Well, we have to, like I said, we have to go through the proper procurement. Without that amount of money, I don't think it's an issue. So, yes, you could hire.
So we make a recommendation to hire, and then it goes to, because it'll be a contract, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Yep, you would send it to our office and we would work on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I've always been on the other end of that, so I didn't know if there was a way that the school committee had to do it, so thank you.
So do we have to make a motion?
Now we do.
Something?
I think there's a vote to fund the exit interview consultant. So that doesn't have a vote in it for the stipended reading group facilitator. That I assume we could put on the agenda in August because it wouldn't start until the fall. Member Seraphy Cox?
Yeah, just that we could vote, about the facilitated process, but in terms of the stipend, as folks said,
Has to be an vote.
yeah, that would need to be in discussion with NACE.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it would be a long discussion, but.
Right, yes. So if that works, we'll do the vote to fund the consultant, send that to Bobby, and then Member Seraphy Cox, can you do the MOU for this, or is that your?
Yeah, that would be within my prerogative for sure.
Great, thank you.
And Ms. Patel, I'm wondering if you have a write-up about that position and even just like a couple sentences so that we can get an idea of what the scope would be in order to put an appropriate stipend.
For the position of the facilitator? I have what I wrote for today's meeting. That was just our summary of our discussion of what the group itself will look like. Would it be helpful to describe what the facilitator's job would be?
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong things, because both of the things that I'm looking at have the information about the contractor.
Okay, it was a jam board. We were collecting thoughts. It's called District-Wide Reading Group Green River Report.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, maybe just just like a sentence or two.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
And do you have my email?
No.
Okay, it's on the website. I can't,
I can find it easily, I'm sure. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think we need a motion.
But I can try. So we're trying to I'd like to make a motion to fund the consultant.
The exit interview.
The exit interview consultant position? Is that how it is? The exit.
Does it need to have an amount of money? Bobby? Can we say for up to $3,000?
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Right.
It says vote to fund the exit.
To exceed.
For up to $3,000?
So I'd like to make a motion to fund the exit interview consultant for up to $3,000.
Works for me. You have a second?
Second.
Member Levy seconded, Member Davis made the motion. Can we have a roll call?
Member Miller.
Yes.
Member Agna.
Yes.
Member Davis.
Yes.
Member Robbins.
Absolutely.
Member Gazy.
Yes.
Member Servy Cox.
Yes.
Member Stein.
Yes.
Member Levy.
Yes.
And Member Levy.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Lena. It's really exciting stuff. And if there are school committee slots on the reading group, I hope you let us know, because maybe would like to be a part of that too.
Sounds great to me. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lena.
Can I make an off the agenda request or comment just to help with the organization of our folders?
Yes.
I just have struggled this time around, especially to find documents, in part because some of them are named funny things, and I imagine they're probably named that because that's what they were named when people sent them to you, Annie.
Yeah.
But like for me, NPS proposal, I just like to find all the documents that she was referring to. It was hard, and so if there's a way to somehow name them things that are related to the agenda item.
That's a tough one. I would like to be able to do that. Sometimes I am able to do that, and I do try. This time I had a lot of minutes to write, so I didn't have a lot of time to spend on this one. But it often happens that people that are giving me documents are looking for the document in there, and if it's named differently, they're not happy about that. And
Because that's what they named it. Oh.
right, because that's what they named it, and it also happens that they have shared it. So I'm just moving it from one folder to another, and I have to go back to the person to ask them to rename it, and I would need a suggestion on how to rename it. So that's a tough one.
Got it.
You know, I mean, I guess I would just ask the committee and anybody else who's listening, if you ever send documents for a meeting, try to make it as clear as possible.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying. I'll do my very best, and I do try,
Yeah.
but it's sometimes troublesome.
Thanks, I get it.
I'm wondering if the agenda setting committee could see if we get the documents, we name the agenda item the way the document read.
Well, that would mean I would be sending you emails for things that I'm getting all week long.
Oh, okay.
Right?
All right.
You know,
We'll try.
It's really a busy process to get these in there anyway.
Okay. We go forward, back to the top.
Yeah.
Superintendent evaluation? No?
Yeah, I don't have a report, but I do have a desire that
Oh,
I just want.
wait a minute. Member Stein, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to add one thing to the last item that was brought up, which would be, rather than renaming the documents, it might be possible just to create a new business folder, which all these documents pertain to, and you could have a subfolder that's just A.
Okay, that makes sense.
B. And then when we're on item A, you just open the A folder and the documents for that item are there. It might be
Okay.
easier than renaming, which would be hard.
That makes sense. I mean, a lot, I can only create links up to 48 hours before the meeting. Anything that comes to me after the 48 hours before the meeting, I won't be able to link in the agenda. So that's a good solution. Thank you, Member Stein.
Thank you. Okay, back to
Sorry.
Member Levy.
I don't have a report. I just have a hope for the superintendent evaluation subcommittee members. We don't need to spend our time right now scheduling, but I just wanted to check in because we don't actually have another meeting until September 1st, but Dr. Bonner will begin July 1st. And I think the process, certainly she's going to need to do a lot of listening and learning before she'll be ready to initiate any kind of goal setting process. But I think to be able to check in with her, to talk about process, to talk about our hopes as a committee, I would love to not wait until September 1st. So I wonder if folks are open to a meeting in early August.
Yes.
Well, doesn't it make sense for the chair of the subcommittee to sit down and meet with her anyway during that time?
I guess that's a question for the subcommittee is, do you want to be there as well or just have me meet with her?
Oh, rather than a full-on open meeting.
Margaret? Members Miller?
I'd love to be there, but it's just the three of us.
I think it's just the three of us.
Yeah, it would be a posted meeting. Well, perhaps I could meet with her in July, and then we could meet with her in early August.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Meet with her in July, and then whatever you come up with, let me know.
Okay, thanks. So I'll reach out to y'all later for scheduling.
Okay.
Member Stein?
Yeah, Member Levy, this is a request to you. You are uniquely qualified on our committee to do this, but if you, in your conversations with Dr. Bonner, and you're thinking about the work of the committee, the subcommittee going forward, if you could provide the school committee in August or September, or whenever it's appropriate, like your perspective on what the MASC guidance is around evaluating superintendents, what the law is, and what we would like to do, because it seems like in the past there's been a lot of confusion on those questions about what's the limits of evaluation, when you do or you don't. Like, if you could give us a sense of the lay of the land to inform how we would want to do this, I think that would be super helpful.
Sure. I can look into doing that. I also know that, and I apologize, I know when you're on Zoom, it's hard when you can't see the person. I don't know what's going on with my camera, but something's going on with my camera, which is why I'm a black box there. But I'm happy to do that. I think there's also a lot in the MASC documentation for school committees on sort of the process of superintendent evaluation. Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm curious, again, Member Stein, super happy to do that. I guess I'd be curious to know what you're looking for that would be outside of that. Is it for us to come to an agreement of what we want to do and what process we want to use, or what would you be looking for outside of what those documents provide?
I think, like, in addition to what MASC provides, I'd want to know what the actual law is, right? So their recommendation might be in reference to the law. It's so weird that I can't see you, Member Levy. You know, like, I have seen in the past, you know, sort of these things being used as a shield, what the guidance is for sort of oversight or evaluation. You know, we have had a lot of issues in the past few years that maybe raise concerns about a different level of oversight. So I'd want to know what the law allows and what the MASC guidance is, and also then figure out what we think is necessary to supervise the sole employee that we have moving forward, and make sure that the goals that we're trying to achieve, the mission, et cetera, can actively be managed by us. Because I think in some conversations, especially in the previous committee, the way it's been discussed is very narrow things you're able to evaluate on. It's like very small things, that's your whole purview. And I just don't know if that's true. So that's why I'm wondering about the law and the MASC guidelines, and then given sort of what we've experienced, we need to have a system that is adequate to provide some the oversight that we have as a body. So that's where my questions are coming from.
Sure, I get that. I'd be happy to do a little research and bring that back. I would say right now, my understanding is that our level of oversight is, or supervision is dependent on the goals that we make. But yeah, I'll do a little digging.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. I think we have to skip C, Budget and Property Subcommittee report from Member Goldman. I don't have a presentation or discussion as a member. I don't know if you, Member Stein, have it?
No, I had emailed Member Goldman about this as well, because at our last Budget and Property meeting, we voted to take this up again at our next Budget and Property meeting, so, which hasn't happened yet. So
yeah, it's next week.
I don't know if it was just an erroneous update heading or what.
All right.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yep.
Do you know, Member Stein, if the expert guests had been invited to that meeting?
I have no idea.
It would be really helpful if
I
that
know.
was confirmed.
Do you know?
I do have information on that. That meeting was not posted. I've been waiting to hear back from Member Goldman on the agenda, and she did not get back to me. So I was waiting until tomorrow to invite everyone that needed to be invited, but we're going to have to reschedule that meeting.
So I can't quite hear you from across the room, but is that a yes or a no that those guests have been invited to the Budget and Property meeting?
No, I think in fact that meeting has to be canceled because I have not heard from the chair of that meeting about the agenda. She has the agenda, but it hasn't been.
When do you need to hear about it?
Today, I needed to hear about it.
It has to be posted when?
Today, and I didn't hear back from the chair.
Okay.
So it has to be rescheduled sometime next week.
Okay. Let's go to the Curriculum Subcommittee. Member Robbins?
I do have a report from the meeting we had yesterday.
Yes. I didn't give you the minutes yet, but.
Right, and I have a piece to send to you, but we had a chock-full agenda, which was really interesting. Part of it was presented by Dr. Worley today, so he presented to us yesterday and to the community today, which was great. Our agenda included an embedded honors update and next step, and the discussion was very rich and good. Northampton High School will collect data from across the school. It will look at how many students take honors, the demographics of who is and who isn't enrolled, the differences across departments from pre-pandemic to now, changes over time. And Dr. Worley felt it was a really good idea to not just look at one department in isolation, to look at what's happening across departments. That data will be disaggregated and discussed by department chairs as a starting point to develop a report for each course and grade level. And that data will be shared with the curriculum committee and the school committee, and likely that will generate some specific questions that we all have around how that works. This is a process Dr. Worley's familiar with in his experience with previous schools. He said, however, it's difficult to get much of this data from Aspen, as we do not have anyone currently in the district or in NPS with the time and skills to do so. So in an effort to retrieve the data and use it with departments and bring a report to the school committee prior to the 2025 program of studies, he does need that additional data collection support. So a recommendation from the school committee to the superintendent and the budget office to try to fund that would be very welcome. I'm going to continue. We have other agenda items, and if folks have questions at the end. We also had a discussion about start time, which the school committee had sent back to curriculum committee to talk about. Primarily, it was around start time and how it impacted faculty and staff at the high school, but I think you also sent it to us for a larger look at possible alternatives in general. So our discussion yesterday focused on Dr. Worley responding about the impact of late start and end times on the work and experience with students. Key for him on that last block, which Member Goldman focused on quite a bit, and I think a couple of other folks. The last block of the high school is frequently the one that's challenged for kids to attend because they have to leave for athletics. Dr. Worley's been working with our athletic director, Dave Pruill, on that. They've discussed how to reduce that conflict with that early dismissal. It's basically around scheduled games that are in the league that our kids participate in, some of which involve a lot of travel, a lot of which has to do with host schools that want to start at 3:15. Our kids are getting out, around then, and then they want to schedule 2 games on the same field. So for field hockey, for example, it's varsity field hockey and JV using the same field, and they want to get started right away, so they're rolling before it gets dark. So Dave Pruill is working with saying, let's take it till it gets dark. Let's really roll it out and have it be later. A lot of schools also have lights, which can be there. Golf is also demanding because they have to meet golf course requirements with limited time offerings. So Dave Pruill is in discussions with leagues about holding the line and starting later and playing right up till dark, which is not an easy task. Dr. Worley feels that this will reduce some of the conflict, but as he said, this is not a puzzle that fits into a picture smoothly because the pieces just don't fit. We heard about other issues, one of which is that even with a 9 a.m. start, there's still a lot of kids who are tardy continually. And we talked a little bit about this possibly being a community challenge about the importance of being to school at time, and that's with caretakers and with students who are continually tardy. So it may not actually be a start time challenge, it's a challenge anytime the school starts. We could be starting at noon and it would still be a challenge. And that does happen sometimes on late starts for half days. They're kids who are tardy coming in. We talked about potentially flipping the start time with JFK, which we know there's a busing challenge around that. But then JFK students don't have the demand of after-school sports, as well as exploring how multi-age students 6 to 12 could share buses with drop-offs timed half an hour between schools. Dr. Worley does have experience with multi-age students on school buses, middle school and high school, and feels that has been a success, but they were all going to the same location. So he will continue his discussions with the AD and with our curriculum group, working on a faculty and staff survey. He'll meet with the district personnel around potential busing alternatives, which might help alleviate knock-on impacts on late dismissal at the high school. We did not address late starts impact on elementary childcare and early dismissal, so that will be further agendaed in the autumn. We got an update on literacy pilot process in progress from Roxanne Dory. Curriculum Director Dory presented the latest on the grant-funded literacy program selection for K-5. Teachers last night were completing the long collaborative process of selection. So that outcome they have selected what they're going to do. It was a democratic decision. She said it was looking like it was fairly balanced on both sides, but it was still going to be, teachers had agreed that whatever was the majority would be what the selection was, and that outcome will be shared with the community by Dr. Pearson Campbell, who thought she might have it today, but it sounds as though she's had other things on her plate after Curriculum Director Dory had submitted the results. The process used in this teacher-led grant included mini pilots of the two programs narrowed down from the DESE curated choices, text submission to the 7 forms of bias protocol, student and caregiver data, scorecards, and student survey results. Director Dory recommends that once the decision is made and materials have arrived, that teachers are going to need a lot more than the currently allotted professional development time to work together with it, which is something that we need to work forward to. An additional agenda item was one that was brought to us by Climate Action Now, and on interest of community members requesting us to explore a K-12 interdisciplinary scaffolded curriculum that could possibly align with the Sustainable Northampton Climate, Resilience, and Regeneration Plan. We heard about impending bills, especially Bill S-260, which Joe Comerford has sponsored, that would require there be a state climate change curriculum implemented. And there is a start date to that, but it has not gone forward since 2022. So starting the conversation in Northampton might be forward-thinking, and one that certainly would fit in with our concerns around what our kids need to know and be able to do to save their planet. And that is our report. Thank you.
May I add one thing as a member of the committee? In the embedded honors section, we did ask about the course of study and the timing around that.
I think I mentioned that. So they're going to bring a report to us prior to the 2025 program of studies. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You good? It was really good. It was a productive group, and people felt that it was productive to be able to have these discussions in a smaller group than rather with the whole school committee. So we look forward to rejoining forces in the fall.
Member Stein?
Yeah, just a quick question, Member Robbins. This is for, if I understood you correctly, right, this is the process that the integrated vertical literacy team's been going through on the evaluating the new early literacy curriculum. Right? This is not the screener conversation, right? This is the actual curriculum that they want to adopt?
This is the literacy program we would be purchasing with the grant-funded, DESE grant-funded, curated programs that teachers had to pick. Yeah, they could pick pieces of one or the other, and maybe they chose to do that, but we don't know what the outcome is yet.
Right, it's not about the screener, though.
Right.
Right, that's separate. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I understood the different balls in the air.
Right.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
I have a question.
Member Miller?
My only question is, once, Member Robbins, once your minutes get sent to Annie, Will we be able to read them? Because this is fascinating stuff, and it's so thorough that I would really want to be able to read it and digest it. So beyond the meeting and the excellent report, but I would love to read the minutes. So will that get sent to us once you send it to Annie?
Well, we take turns doing minutes, so Dina did them last time, Gwen did them this time, and I'm happy to contribute anything to enriching that. We're still getting used to it. But yes, they go to Annie, and then they should be approved by us.
Yeah, and then they get posted on the calendar, the school committee calendar. We're a little behind in posting them, but we will catch up over the summer.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to Central Office Liaison, Member Miller.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was lost in thought.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, so, since our last meeting, I have met with, both Annie and Michelle, on May 23rd. We've just so far had only one meeting because there was also so much work that they needed to do. What?
We've had 2 meetings.
What?
We have had 2 meetings.
Oh, I only wrote, since our last meeting, I had, okay, I missed one. These are my notes. So, but we meet for about, 45 minutes so that we can, I don't want to interfere, frankly, with the amount of time that they need to spend working on all these minutes. And so they still need some clarification about board docs. And there hasn't been anyone yet who has been present at central office to work on board docs, because board docs only allows 2 administrators, and those administrators are Annie and Michelle. So they need a member of the school committee to be present in central office in order to help figure out the issue of board docs. So it can't just be remote, it has to be in central office.
It is on the agenda tonight for a vote already. I think the agenda setting team.
It is?
wanted to move it forward.
I don't know that, I don't think so.
Did it not make it on?
No.
Am I imagining that?
Yep. Wait
I'm
in.
sorry, it's not. I've imagined that, sorry.
I might suggest on our special meeting that we have it included.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be helpful to have somebody come and take a look. We've asked a few people, haven't got anybody in there yet. So anybody that wants to come and do that, you're welcome.
We'll put it on the agenda for June 14th.
Okay, so, as you've, we, I think, are all aware of the minutes that they are revising. And then there are, Annie actually developed a chart which we've been going over, all the meetings that still have to be done and who's going to be doing each of the meetings. And there's, at some point, Annie, this chart needs to be I need to share it with everybody because it's extensive.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, now that we've finished with the minutes revisions, that were very granular revisions, took us a long time.
So I'm just gonna show, if everyone can look and see, there's pages.
So it's sort of like a to-do list.
These are the minutes that still have to be done after all the revisions get made.
Most of them are.
And what's interfering with getting some of this done is all the records requests that keep coming in. That interferes with getting the meetings caught up.
Anything done.
So it's an extensive, it's a huge task, and this is somewhere in Bobby's report, I think. There's something about the question of whether a temp could be hired to assist with this. Because I have actually the history of how these developed over this backlog developed, even frankly even before Annie worked here. So the backlog has to be dealt with I think another temp is going to have to be hired to help them to get it, because they're doing this in between their other central office duties. You know, they both are executive secretaries to the superintendent, and they have other things. So anyway, it's just an enormous task. But we, I think, as a school committee can help by sticking to the calendar of meetings. The more meetings we have and the longer they go, the more there is to notate. So we, as a school committee, can help by sticking to our calendar, and the less we add more meetings, the better. So.
And I will add that I thank the school committee, because May was the first month where we really stuck to the calendar of meetings, and I was able to get a lot more done from the to-do list, even in spite of revising all these minutes, excuse me. So, yes, please.
But they'll all be done by July.
Well, by the August meeting.
By the August
Why did we
meeting.
get a temp? And I'll let Bobby speak to it, but I know she's looking for
She's going
one.
to speak to it.
So that's my report.
Okay. Member
So
Roberts?
I have a question for, I'm unaware of new public records requests. Have there been some that we don't know about? Are there,
There are pending public records requests. There's far more public records requests these days than there ever were.
Are there new public record requests that we're not aware of?
Yeah, I mean.
I don't think there's any more that, are there
Well,
any more?
not about the minutes, but we have public records requests about all sorts of things, all kinds of things. Curriculum, all kinds of things. But, you know, in the past few years, former school committee members and other people have really hammered on the minutes. And those have
Okay,
been.
point of order, please, on that. Thank you. I just asked that one question. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Stein?
I actually had the same question. I was wondering how many requests had come in since the last school committee meeting. So if we could get that number from Michelle after the fact, how many public record requests had come in since our last school committee meeting, that would be great.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Member Miller? Thank you, Member Miller. Going on to Bobby Jones, Business Administrator, Financial Report.
Okay, so you have everything in your packet. The bill warrants, I just want to check in, is that working okay for everybody? Member Agna is checking them, as you know, and you guys are getting them at the school committee meeting. Is that working okay for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. I also have the June, or actually it's the May report. And Member Robbins had asked that I write a list up of the accounts that were in a deficit. And I did attempt or start to do that, but excuse me, I could not finish that. But what I can do is I can review it a little bit and tell you there are quite a few accounts that are in a deficit, and what they are in a deficit for in a lot of areas is additional pay, like for example, teacher instructional additional pay, There's some special ed, contract services that is in a large deficit. And what happens there is that you don't have the personnel to do it. So let's just say a therapist resigned and you didn't hire somebody. You may use the contract service line because that's who you're going to have do that sort of work. So there'll be a transfer that will go from the actual salary line into the contract service line, for example. There is some lines where the invoices were paid out of the wrong account, so that's really just a journal entry to do. And what I was planning on doing is bringing a really extensive report in August, so that by then we should have everything done. The payrolls will be encumbered for the summer pays. The rest of the things are done. All the encumbrances that are currently in there now will have been looked at and either reduced or increased as necessary. We do have a deadline that we have to get all that into the auditor's office by. I think it's July 15th. So August will be a good time for me to give you a really extensive report on how we're ending up in the year, along with any monies that are left over. One thing I found out is that in the past, what I've been told is that the school committee has taken a vote on setting aside a certain amount of money in the school choice funds for any bills that didn't get encumbered that may come through. I tried to go back and look at the recordings and stuff, but I haven't found anything yet. But that's something we can talk about at that point as well.
Thank you, Bobby. Do we have any questions?
I have one comment. Bobby, were you aware that CES is not going to be charging us the 14% additional for our out-of-district? They're actually only charging us 4%.
No, I was not aware of that.
Yeah, well, hurrah, they are. They're awesome. Yeah, I didn't know if they made that the public announcement, but I don't know what the impact will be on our projected expenditures for those particular services. It would be good to have that shared as well, if you could.
Yep, will do for sure. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Member Stein?
Thanks for the report, Bobby. I appreciate it. I know earlier in the year we had talked about the possibility of setting up a special education revolving fund. And we haven't set it up yet, and obviously the year is ending. I guess what I'm wondering is at a future budget and property committee meeting, like when you go through this year end, right, and you figure out if we're gonna earmark certain money for encumbered expenses that come in later, et cetera, in school choice, you could think about like the best way we might want to set that up next year, sort of based on the year-end experience this year, and we can talk about it at budget and property. I think that might be great. Like it's too hard to try to do that now. Obviously, it's just we don't have the meetings or the time. But I guess I'm thinking like as you go through this, if we were going to do that, what would we have done differently? Might be helpful for us to talk about it, budget and property, for the coming years. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. And I'm not sure if it can be a revolving account, because I'm not sure that would make it into the statutory revolving account that you can have as allowed, but it could be that we'd have to set up a stabilization fund.
Okay.
For that sort of thing. But yeah, that's definitely a great topic to bring up at the budget and property subcommittee.
Thanks so much.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Thank you, Bobby. I know you're on again, so I'm wondering if we want to, if there's a discussion of the final budget by control center.
Well,
does
I'm
it
here
make
to
sense?
the end anyway, so whenever you're ready.
You're going to be here anyway? Okay, well, we'll wait, we'll stay with the agenda then. The superintendent's report, I have it, and it was in the packets, but I think for this, in the interest of the public, I will read it. Unfortunately, the superintendent couldn't be here tonight, and so I will read it for the public. Dear school committee members, Anti-Racism Policy Implementation Plan. On May 9th, 2023, during the ALT meeting, Kit Sabo from Collaboration Resolution Group and Lee Ellen Figueroa, Restorative Justice Facilitator, visited our ALT meeting and provided an introduction into the practice of restorative justice. Additionally, over the summer, the ALT team will be working to refresh their knowledge of restorative practices for implementation in the Northampton Public Schools. Budget season. The central office presented our final budget of $37,765,747 to the Northampton City Council Finance Subcommittee. During the meeting, we discussed budgetary support from the city and advocacy in our state government. Overall, the Northampton Public School District, the Northampton School Committee, Northampton School Administrators, and the Northampton Association of School Employees share a commitment to these goals: to provide our educators, staff, and administrators with salaries to attract and maintain a highly qualified, diverse staff, to ensure each school building has a robust continuum of services and interventions to guarantee all learners are supported in their academic, social, emotional, and behavioral growth, to administer regular screening and progress monitoring to provide appropriate interventions and support for our students, improving student outcomes as expected, to provide rigorous, high-quality, evidence-based curricular materials that empower all students to become active, engaged, community-minded, independent learners, to continue strong and committed programming in the arts, physical education, career pathways, humanities, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, to establish classroom and school communities that are safe and engaging, and to provide all students with a sense of belonging. Congratulations. On June 4th, our seniors graduated from Northampton High School. We want to wish them the best on the next part of their educational journey. Our other schools have started their end-of-year celebration, and each school has planned events. Details can be found in each school's newsletter. The Superintendent Health Advisory Council. The month of May provided 19 students testing positive for COVID. In May, 1,684 students and 500 staff were absent. During April, a total of 17 students tested positive for COVID. Furthermore, in April, 2,470 students and 1,444 staff were absent. Provided below is the link to the monthly report for further review, the SHAC reporting data. Dr. Pearson Campbell also put dates to remember, and I will go to the dates that we still haven't had yet, which are Thursday, June 15th, is now a full day of school. Monday, June 19th, is no school for Juneteenth. The last day of school is Wednesday, June 21st. It's a half day for all students. Schools will dismiss students according to the following schedule. All elementaries at 11:30 a.m., JFK Middle School 12:25 p.m., high school at 12:50 p.m. And 2023-2024 back to school, Thursday, August 31st is the first day of school for students grades 1 to 12. Schools will start according to the following schedule, and there's the same start times. All elementaries 8 a.m. to 2:10, JFK Middle 8:30 a.m. to 3:05, high school 9 a.m. to 3:30. Wednesday, September 6th is the first day for preschool and kindergarten. So, Dr. Pearson Campbell, if you're listening, we wish you all the best since this was your last message for us, and we thank you for all your work that you put in to be the interim superintendent for the Northampton Public Schools. Thank you. We're on to new business, and we go down to the discussion of final budget by Control Center. Bobby Jones.
Well, that wasn't long. So everybody should have received their, the documents as we had said at the last meeting, so you've had them for a while to review. I didn't know if you wanted me to go over, you know, the changes that are line by line. I'm not sure if I can share my screen or if you all have the ability to look at it on your computers.
Can you share it? That would be great.
Would you share it, Bobby?
I can try.
I can try, okay.
Okay, let's see. So we'll start with, let's see if I can share screen. And then, sorry, I'm going to shut my camera off for a minute so you don't have to look at me up front. Let's see. I gotta get close here. What's this one? What's this? What's that? That's the district. Ooh.
We can see it.
All
It's
right,
a little
yay.
small, but we can see it.
Hey,
Do you want me to make it bigger?
I think it's, well, yeah, there we go. That's great.
That's okay. All right,
Yep.
so we'll start with the, this is the district budget. So this is by cost center, and I'll have to get out and redo each time by cost center. But just to give you an example of how it's gonna work, if you look at, on the left-hand side, you'll see there's line numbers, basically. And that looks sweet, so I gotta move this, hold on. Move that, there you go. Now I gotta go up. There we go. Hey, I'm getting it. That's amazing. Okay, so we'll start at the beginning for the district. And so on the left, you'll see the line numbers. So the changes from what we originally proposed, which was the 37,770,206, I believe, to what budget was passed after the mayor had given us the one-time use of funds. If you look at line 7, that's a school committee software line. And that was originally 18,300. That's the one we reduced to the 9,300. That's the software that we had up for discussion tonight for the school committee. So that was reduced. Then we go now to line 12, the superintendent line. We had originally 186,900. That was reduced. As we talked about down, you know, we had originally put in 5%. That was reduced to 4%. So that line is now 186,832 as it shows. Down to line 24. Superintendent office travel line, that was 1,000. We deleted that line, so we made that 0. The business office admin, again, that is the contract that was reduced from the 5 to the 4. That was 232,508 in the first budget as presented, and is now 231,168. Then we go on to line 40, which is the tech coordinator. And that is the reduction. It was 107,512, and now it's 53,756. So that we reduced to the 0.5 for that position, as well as reducing the % increase. Down to line 46, Again, that's the same, that's the director of curriculum. So it was originally 110,250, reduced to 109,2. Down to line 51 will be the same thing. Director of special ed was originally 119,837, is now 118,695. And then sped office clerical on line 53 was part of the reduction. So that was taking a full year assistant to part year, but they're going to keep the same full year assistant, but they're going to pay for a portion of it out of the 240 grant. And then that was sped office clerical, okay. So then we go on to line 70, which is the sped summer teachers. I had originally increased that line because it has been overspent. It was originally in the original budget, 57,680. We brought it back down to what it has been normal in the past few years, but we will, see what we can do to keep the costs within budget there. Then you go to line 2320, and that is, I'm sorry, line 77, which is therapy contract services. That was 110,000. We reduced that by 91. And if you'll recall, all these that I'm talking about now were presented in that last PowerPoint presentation, which showed all the reductions and additions as presented. And then if you go down to line 82, the to regular ed staff, that was 6,000. We reduced that to 2,000. The next line below it is was 5,000. We reduced to 4,000. Then we went to the line 85. And that is the same thing as the summer teachers. This is the summer ESPs. That's reduced. Again, it's increased slightly, but it's not increased as much as I had originally looked at and thought we needed. But in talks, we said that we'll do what we can to keep that lower. So it was 60,969, and we reduced it to 40,649, which was just a slight increase. Line 88, the professional development stipends, that was reduced from 36,1 down to 35,000. Line 90, professional development meeting expense was 1,800. We reduced it to 1,300. Line 91 was 9,200. We reduced to 5,000. And then line 93, the PD conferences, we reduced to, it was 3,250. We reduced to 2,000. And these were recommendations originally from the director of curriculum, Roxanne, even though I know we all know we will maybe need more, but hopefully the grants can pick up a bunch of that. Then you move on to line 97. And the PD contract services, that was reduced slightly. That was 21,980. It was reduced to 20,000. Then we're going to go all the way down to line 116, which is the director of health services. And that was part of Josh's reorg, taking away that Title IX piece. So it was originally 113,491 and is now 103,491. And then the next line, the 117, is the school nurse there that was part of the nurse care coordinator that was reduced to 0.5. It was a 1.0, it was reduced to 0.5, and that's partially paid from the health grant as well. And then down to line 127, the bus monitors, one bus monitor was reduced. It was somebody retiring and they're not replacing that bus monitor because they have 2 drivers that are retired and are willing to come back to fill in as needed subbing. So that was that. Then we're gonna go all the way down to line 143. And this is the food service area, so 143. What we typically do is we journal entry money from the general fund budget into the cafeteria revolving fund for staff. It was at 48,525. We reduced that to 23,399. Then you had the food service PD expense, and then the next line under that, the debt. They were 4,100 and 6,000. Those were reduced to 0. The food service account is in really good standing right now. And we have been, so next year we still get the same free, everybody gets the lunch, so we get reimbursed for more. So that account is in really good standing. So we did this, and we'll keep a good eye on if we need to increase or decrease, but as we do, it will be in very small increments. It's not like we'd have to have any large changes there. So that's that piece. Down to line 151, facilities management. That is 1 custodian. Did I say the wrong? Did I say the? I said 150, right? Yeah, district-wide custodian, sorry. That was reduced 1 custodian. So it was 137,921 and it's now 97,921. Then custodial subs, he reduced, and I say he, Tony, I worked with Tony on this, so he reduced that line from 5,000 to 1,208. And then we're gonna go all the way down to line 187. And that is the tech student helpers. That was originally 20,000, we reduced that to 0. Before Molly left, she had indicated that she got a grant, it's a multi-year grant, and that grant is able to support these positions. So that is that piece. And then down to 193 is the computer tech salary. So they had changes in who they had for hires, so there was savings. So we were able to reduce that by about $10,000. It was 187,770. And so it's the same people, the same FTEs, et cetera. It's just that newer people had come in at lesser salaries. And then 208, line 208, that line was originally 477,697, and it was increased to the 637,887. And this is because, as you recall, that we were given that 1.2 million. So you'll see areas in the budget where we increased certain areas to make that work in the total overall budget number. So that's it for the district. Did anybody have questions on the district one?
Any questions? Nope, looks like we're all set.
I see Josh's hand. Does he have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't have a question. I was just hopeful that you could go up to the top under the Director of Special Ed salary line and just talk about the decrease in the Supervisor of Special Ed, just because I know that that is a big difference. And that's okay. It just represents, so it would be line 52. So from 211,917 to 154,446.
Yeah.
So that is where you can see the difference from having 2 Unit B administrators to only having 1 Unit B administrator, and the job description that you approved today of the SE coordinators. A portion of them is represented in that 154,446, but I just wanted to highlight that, as I know that that has been a topic of discussion. So I just wanted to make sure that the committee and public were aware of that change.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll shut my camera off and look at the next thing to pull up. So give me a minute. Only because I have to put my face right up there. I don't think y'all want to see that. There we go. Video. Okay. Go.
Member Agna, I don't know if you see my hand raised.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
That's okay. I
Member
just had, yeah, thanks. I just had a question. I think it's actually more for Director Dixon. I'm wondering if you, earlier in the meeting, Member Robbins had said that CES is only doing a 4% increase on our tuition instead of a 14%. And the question was asked, you know, how would that affect our budget, hopefully positively, right? I'm curious if you had any thoughts on that.
Sure. So we have not received official notice of what Heck Academy's tuition is yet. We usually don't get it until the summer. But I imagine that Member Robbins, as a member of the board or as a representative who liaises with the board, probably has insider information. So that's great news. And so what I can plan to do is either give the information to Bobby around what the difference will be for the students who attend Heck Academy, or share that information at the next committee meeting. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can certainly ask the special ed department at Heck if that final tuition amount has been announced.
Great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we're on to Northampton High School. If you look at line 8, that is the principal's salary. Again, that's a reduction from the 5 to the 4. The next thing we're going to move down to is line 42. And that is the SPED ESP. In the previous budget was $193,599. It's now increased to $349,385, and that's part of just including that piece that the mayor gave us. So that's taking away from having that paid out of school choice. It's now into the general fund. And then we'll go to line 49, which is textbooks and workbooks, and that was originally $10,000. It's reduced to $7,554. And then down to line 51, the instructional supply line, that was $45,000. That was reduced to $30,000. And then line 54, which is the copier lease, that was $22,317, reduced to $21,317. And you're going to see that throughout. As we had a new contract, we were able to reduce these lines throughout the different schools. Down to line 62, instructional software was $30,000, reduced to $25,000. And then Let's see, I think that was it. That's it for Northampton High School. Next, I'll pull up JFK. Does anybody have any questions on Northampton, the high school? Okay, I'm going. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the JFK. Let's see if I can do this without being. There we go. Look at that. Okay, make it a little bigger. Can everybody see okay? All right. So for JFK, we start at line, whoops, I have it stuff here. We'll start at line 2305, which is line 18. That's the science teacher, so that was reduced. That was 324, 422 in the old budget, 304, 422 now, and that was for a retirement savings. Music at line 23, again, the same thing. That was 157.4, we're down to 137.4, and again, we had a long time teacher that there's retirement savings in that fashion. Then down onto line 37. Again, you'll see this throughout the various schools, is the SPED ESP line. That was 102,548 originally, increased to 173,340. Down to line 40, they did reduce the ESP library. That's the aide, they reduced that position, so that's no longer. They do still have the librarian, they just don't have the ESP or paraeducator. Now down to line 43, we have the PD expenses. That was 8,000, that got reduced to 1,000. Again, on line 47 is the copier lease. That was 36,884, reduced to 31,884. 52, instructional software was 18,632. That was reduced to 6,818. And then line 56, they had the 504 academic testing. They reduced that position. That was originally 42,807, is now at 0. And then we have line 62, which is the, oops, sorry, not lines. That was it for JFK, actually. Those were the reductions for JFK. If anybody has any questions on that one. If not, we'll move on to Bridge Street. Bridge Street School. Bring that there. Okay. So Bridge Street School, we'll start with line 15. And just by the way, for JFK and Bridge Street School, there isn't a reduction in the principal lines because they had changed from interim to permanent, and the salaries that are in there are the salaries as negotiated with their new contracts. Then, so line 15 for music teacher, that's a retirement savings. It was originally 34,766, reduced to 15,371. Classroom teacher, line 20, that was the elimination of one position through a retirement. and the class sizes so that they could have less classes in that grade. It was originally 958, 499, is now 906, 691. Down to line 32, you will see the regular ed ESP. That is $30,000. That's the reinstatement of what was previously paid through the ESSER funding for the first grade paraprofessional is now back into the general fund budget. Line 34, we have the, again, the special ed ESP or paraeducator. That was 102,548 previously, is now 148,934. And again, that's just to take away from the school choice expense. And that is it for Bridge Street. So we'll move to Jackson Street. And there. Okay. So Jackson Street, we start with the line 5, the principal reduction. It was 117,600. It's now 116,480. Then line 8, we reduced the subs for the clerical from 500 to 0. The clerical additional OT line from 1,000 to 500. And then the principal office supply line from 2,500 to 500. The line 12, principal hardware from 1,000 to 0. The phys ed teacher from line 16 from 104, 107 to 88,525, and that is for the phys ed teacher that was doing the special classes that they no longer need, which is the adaptive PE. Then down to line 18, academic support teacher, 174,408 to 154,408, and that was retirements. Classroom teacher, line 19, from 1,203,046 to 1,121,508. The combination of the reduction of a class and some retirement savings. Down to line 27. Yeah, you're still in there. Regular ed ESP, again, that's the 30,000 was added back in for the first grade paraprofessional or paraeducator to remain. Line 30, the SPED ESP originally was 156,783. It's now 186,900. And that is, let's see, we do line 36. Line 36 is PD expenses, was 25, that's down to 0. Line 39, SPED instructional supplies was 500, down to 0. And then the copier lease for line 40 from 9,000 to 8,000, again, due to the new contracts. So that is it for Jackson Street School. Now we'll go to Leeds. And Leeds, we have, start with the line 5 principal was 119,761. That was reduced to 118,620. Down to line 20, which was classroom teachers, 1,154,024 down to 1,139,024. And that was the reduction of one classroom teacher. Line 32, the SPED ESP was 102,548 originally, is down now to, or up to 183,333. Then we have line 36, which is the technology integration specialist, which was 42,807 down to 31,266. Savings due to retirement. Line 37, professional development stipends was 2750, reduced to 750. Line 38, PD expenses 7,000, reduced to 3,500. Then the copier lease on line 42 from it was 10,000, reduced to 9,000. That is it for leads. And we're going to go to Ryan Road, and that will be our final. Okay. Ryan Road, start with the line 5. Principal salary, that was 117,600, reduced to 116,480. Down to line 19, academic support teacher was 175,576. That's 104,835. That's part savings in retirement and part the BCBA, I believe, was in there. Then we go down to line 23. SPED teacher salary was 610,086 down to 583,586. That's a retirement savings. Therapist was 188,468 down to 152,126. Down to line 31, SPED ESP, that's the same 102,548 up to 148,935. Then we go to line 33 was the tech integration specialist, which was a retirement savings of 42,807 down to 31,266. And line 40, the copier lease was 93,06 down to 83,06. And that is the end of those. So did anybody have any questions before I stop sharing?
Any questions or comments from members? Okay, I think seeing none, thank you, Bobby, for that.
Okay, I'm gonna try to figure out. Yeah, I'll get there. Share.
As you do that, I'm going to move on to H, which is vote to refer JRA to the Rules and Policy Subcommittee with colleague member Gazy. Member Gazy? Okay. Why don't we move to, we can come back. Member Seraphy Cox?
Oh, I was just going to say that Member Gazy spoke to this item earlier this evening in her subcommittee report. So it was just that this this policy was related to some questions that Member Stein had about the public's right to know policy that the committee approved earlier this evening. So the Rules and Policy Subcommittee was just asking to be able to look at that policy as part of that discussion.
I didn't make the connection with the letters, but anyway, I'm glad that
Yeah,
we've
that's
done
okay.
it. Thank you.
But
Oh,
didn't
no,
we
we
vote to
haven't,
refer?
we haven't made,
Oh, yes. We
we haven't
didn't
made the
vote.
vote.
So can I make a
No.
motion to refer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Would anyone like to second that?
I'll second it.
Beautiful.
Councilmember Gazy, she has reappeared.
Okay, any comments or questions or discussion about this? No, if none, we will ask for the roll call, please.
Member Agna?
Yes.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Robbins? Yes. Member Gazy?
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Levy?
Yes.
And Member Miller?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I know there's still some people on here for letter I. We're vote to approve the resolution in support of the Thrive Act. And Member Seraphy Cox.
Yes, well, I won't attempt to repeat the many amazing, eloquent stories and points that were made during public comment. I think all of that reflects all of the reasons why I have brought this resolution to the school committee. So I just would love for the school committee to join our local legislators in supporting the Thrive Act with this resolution. So I guess I'll make a motion for to approve the resolution as stated in your packet supporting the Thrive Act.
Second. Makes the motion. Who's going to second it?
Second it.
Member Davis seconds it. We've had lots of seconds here. It's great. Member Levy?
I just want to thank Member Seraphy Cox for bringing this to the school committee, and really thank Senator Comerford for her unyielding support of issues of equity in schools, really thinking about high stakes testing. She's been really committed to this, and I really appreciate her and the extent to which she's really pushed this through. So thank you to Senator Comerford, and I'm excited to support this resolution.
For Robbins?
And to follow up that, I remember appearing before this committee 20 years ago with a group of teachers asking MCAS to be rescinded. It's been a really long 20 years, and it's hurt kids, and it's cost school districts. So it's about time, and I recommend supporting this 1,000%. Thank you.
Great. I think, I can't imagine, no one else is prepared to do anything but say yay. So thank you. And we have a motion on the floor from Member Seraphy Cox, seconded by Member Davis. Let's have a roll call.
Member Davis?
Yes.
Member Robbins?
Yes.
Member Gazy?
Yes.
Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Hold on, having technical difficulties here. Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Wholeheartedly, yes.
And Member Agna?
Yes, and thanks to those who spoke in public comment in support of it as well. Feels really good. Okay. Next is the update retreat with Dr. Bonner and the ALT for strategic planning and review of the Green River report. And also I'd like to add that it would be for goal setting as well. I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Bonner and ask her what she thought about us beginning to discuss this, because I know Member Robbins and others I've spoken to, members of the community, have been anxious to get something going in terms of strategic planning, as well as doing our goals, and also begin the review of the Green River report together. And Dr. Bonner was absolutely fine for me to bring this forward just to have an airing. And also, she reports that she's very interested in having that retreat so that she can get to know us, and also that, as it used to happen before when there were retreats, the alt would come to the retreats, and she's very interested in beginning her time as the superintendent of schools to have the alt and the school committee work together with her to set goals and begin the idea of a community strategic plan, which would, as she said when we met, this has to be a very extensive process and it has to have many stakeholders involved that will include not only educators, but caregivers and departments around the city that might have an input into anything that would come up around the kind of planning that we might need to do for our schools. So that's why I asked to put it on, because I did ask for permission from her to have it on, and if there's any discussion in advance, we can share that with her when she starts on July 1st. Member Levy?
Thanks. I'm really excited that this is coming to conversation. I was going to say fruition, but I think we're not quite there yet. This is something I've been really excited about for probably 4 years now, and very much hoping for. I think this is a really, really critical step for us as a school committee and as a district. I just want to echo one of the last pieces you said about the idea of this being the school's retreat, but also the city's retreat. This is something that when we're talking about a strategic plan for our schools, this should be the city's strategic plan for the schools. That comes with the budgetary support necessary to really move a strategic plan forward, in addition to the other departments that you named that could be really beneficial. So I don't know what the right order of operations is in terms of who meets together first, but just want to echo that piece and share my hope that yes to everything, plus really engaging and thinking about this as a citywide strategic plan for education.
Great, thank you. Member Stein?
I'm similarly excited about this. My only sort of concern is about pace and timing, and the recognition that there is already an unveiled multi-year capital campaign, which heavily involves school infrastructure and needs to be part of the strategic planning discussion. So I would encourage us at that meeting to think about the ways in which we can understand what plans have already been put in motion and what things we might need to fold into our process and have the city reconsider as we begin to develop a strategic plan for the schools. So that's my only hesitation, because there's a lot of capital expenditures with a certain vision of the infrastructure, and that's part of the strategic planning questions we have to address. So I hope we can do that. I'm excited about this retreat and looking forward to joining you all there.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Any other discussion? Well, Dr. Bonner, if you're watching, we're really excited that you'll be jumping on as of July 1st, and welcome to Northampton. Here. 9:45. Oh, we're not that far behind. Okay. I don't know, we probably need to talk about these discussion topics because it's part of an agenda that we need to think about how we do this, but we don't have any discussion topics, so we're moving on to future business and meeting dates. We have Budget Property Subcommittee at 4:30, Monday, June 12th.
Well, it sounds like that's not happening.
That's not going to happen, and I will just say that hasn't been posted, so it won't happen. We'll have a special meeting to look at the minutes, review the minutes, and also board docs on Wednesday, June 14th. So we're going to have to get that posted. We have rules and policy at 4 o'clock on Wednesday, June 21st. A school committee meeting our next one will be Thursday, August 10th to 23, and Budget and Property at 4 p.m. on Monday, August 14th, 2023, and Rules and Policy at 4 p.m. Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. So we are finishing our meetings for June, and except for the June 14th and the June 21st, so Rules and Policy. And then having a break in the summer from July. Member Seraphy Cox.
Just wondering if you could say the time for the meeting on the 14th. Is it June 14th? Is it at 6:30 p.m.?
I am assuming it is. So let's just say 6:30 p.m. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are finishing now, and we'll go into executive session. We will not return to the full committee after that. So we have to begin our process of executive session.
Need a motion.
Motion to go into executive session. Would someone like to make that motion?
Request to enter executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Open Meeting, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and the chair so declares.
Anybody second that?
Second it.
Roll call, please.
Member Robbins?
Yes.
Member Gazy?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Member Seraphy Cox?
Yes.
Member Stein?
Yes.
Member Levy?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Member Agna?
Yes.
And Member Davis?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. And we'll say goodbye until August. Well, except a couple meetings.